Ich bin ein Sie kriegen.
Ich bin ein joining us. Ich bin ein join. Okay, let me turn this down.
Turn it down.
And this is the Mr. Podcast with Claude and Justin?
Yeah, let's call it, because I think I called the first one Dark Podcast number 1, so let's call it Dark Podcast number 2.
Okay.
Just keep with the theme.
Do I say I say with Claude and Justin, right?
With Claude and Justin, since it's Mr. Podcast. Like I say and Justin.
You say that and Justin. Okay,
yeah.
Okay!
Okay!
That's what I sound like. Okay, 5,
I don't know what that voice is, so I just did it. Anyway.
2. Welcome to Mr. Podcast with Claude.
And Justin!
Hey! We're so excited, clearly, to
or should I say und Justin?
Yeah, we're excited in German to talk about Dark. Doing a season 1 recap. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, season 1. Season 1
retro,
recap. Season 1 recap. Season 1 encompassing cast. Yeah.
We are going to warn you for spoilers if you haven't seen season 1 of Dark.
Total spoilers. Only for season 1. I really don't know anything about season 2 or season 3, so I'm not pretending like I don't know. This isn't one of those, okay? I really don't know.
Well, I really don't know anything about seasons 2 or 3, as evidenced by my non-sarcastic emphasis.
You almost sound like Christopher Walken. Like that weird emphasis. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's like such a Christopher Walken thing. Or maybe William Shatner. I don't know. I feel like they both do that. Like, let's accent a strange part of the sentence.
Yeah. You mean acting?
Yeah, that's called acting, my boy.
It's called acting, my boy. Why don't you try? Who was that from? Why don't you just try acting?
I think that was Laurence Olivier.
Yeah, Laurence Olivier and Michael Caine.
Dustin Hoffman, maybe.
Oh, I thought it was Michael Caine. Okay,
maybe it was Michael Caine. It was someone who was like doing method acting stuff, and that was the comeback.
They're like, I got to do all this work to get ready for this scene, and he's like, why don't you just try acting, my boy? It's much simpler. Yeah. And there's a parallel story about Anthony Hopkins and
Alec Baldwin.
And Alec Baldwin.
On the edge. Yeah, they were supposed to be like winded from running or something, and like Alec Baldwin's like running around the set furiously, and Anthony Hopkins just walks in and goes,
yeah. Yeah, why don't you try acting, my boy?
I'm not going to do that. Have fun, Alex.
Yeah, I'll just pretend to be winded. The audience won't know the difference.
That's my job.
Yeah. They didn't hire me to run.
Exactly.
Okay, so we started talking about Dark for a Patreon request. And Justin and I decided to keep watching. The pilot was interesting. I wasn't really hooked on the show like the same way I've been hooked on other shows from the pilot, but definitely was interesting. It set up some interesting ideas. And we just finished watching the first 10 seasons. Sorry, the first 10 episodes.
Yikes!
Yeah, we just blazed through 10 seasons of the show.
We've seen seasons that don't even exist yet.
If you haven't seen seasons 4 through 10, let me just tell you, it's real dark. No, sorry. First 10 episodes, which is season 1. Right. So we can dive in and kind of talk about it. We'll do, we'll talk about the gates as we're going to start calling them, which are the
many gates,
outstanding mystery questions, I guess. Conspiracies or unanswered questions.
I think gates can take many forms, but usually it involves like some unresolved like thing where it's like sometimes gates arise just because there's like a writing problem, But other times gates arise because there's a real mystery and we just don't know the answer yet and it's not clear, you know. You never know what it is. But yeah, like usually I think every show I watch, but I think mystery shows even more so, like there's like, you know, there's like 3 or 4 things that I just fixate on because I'm just like, I don't get this. And I just wait until they do something with it. And sometimes they do, and you know, sometimes they just continue to think that Dokes was the Bay Harbor Butcher. Anyway. That's just life.
That's just life. Sometimes the main character never finds out what the show was really about.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing I wanted to say is, like, as far as that first cast, you know, it was a commentary. We were watching the episode for the first time, and like, honestly, like, this show's a lot. This show is a lot. It's really, like, a lot. I don't know.
Is it a lot, perhaps? What word are you looking for?
I can't do better than that. There's just a lot taken. Like, someone said, I forget, maybe it was Blake or maybe it was someone else, you know, that it's important to keep track of the characters' names because, you know, like, it helps you find, and like, God damn it, that's true. Holy shit. I definitely had to make use of the internet several times to like keep straight, like who's who. I kept getting the old men confused. Like I got confused, like which one's the one in the institution and which one's the one who's like Orange's dad who's like out doing stuff. Like I kept like thinking they were the same person, and then I would get confused about which one was which, and like anyway, I got it now. But you know, then you know, there's that opening narration in the first episode where they kind of insinuate that the story's about time travel, you know, and like it's weird because there's really no hint of that in the first episode. And so like you're just left wondering, like,
until you don't know that what you're seeing is evidence of it, but
exactly. You've already seen it, like it's already happened. Yeah, there's definitely shades of Tenet here with some of this business, you know, or Primer, I guess, like any of those like time travel stories where it's like characters like manipulating time travel to like achieve some goal or try to stop something or whatever, you know, and they're like competing parties and like they're doing stuff at the same time, and you know, it just gets like really complicated. And you know, we have, I think, you know, the thing I was going to just say about the first podcast is like, I really didn't get, I feel like I got about 40% or something of what was really going on in that episode. And so anyway, after actually watching, like, I definitely have a better like appreciation of what the show's doing, and I really enjoy it. I mean, I think, you know, it has its shortcomings like most shows do. There's some issues. We'll get into that, I'm sure. But yeah, I really ended up enjoying it more than I thought I would. And you know, it's like it's derivative of other shows in ways. You know, Twin Peaks. Obviously, there's like a touch of Stranger Things. You know, this like small town mystery thing. Les Revenants, if you've seen that French show, it's you know, similar kind of setting and you know, a sort of quasi zombie story, but it's like people come back, like that's sort of going on, and you know, obviously like any mystery show with time travel, you know, so like there's a little bit of loss going on too, with a couple of the scenes, definitely call back to that. But I think the thing that
I would also just real quick throw in Donnie Darko is a huge
yeah, that's a time travel thing,
but not just that, but specifically like the Jonas character is Donnie Darko. Basically.
Oh yeah, totally.
You know,
totally.
And that's what I noticed is a lot of the characters are kind of in their own story, and a lot of them don't know the other people that have other pieces to the puzzle.
Indeed.
You know,
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think for me, the thing that sets it apart from those other shows and those other stories is the intergenerational quality, where you're like keeping track of, you know, people's parents and their grandparents and, it's just like it's a rich tapestry, and of course, there's some overlap between those. We'll get to that. But yeah, I feel like that element like makes it feel different from the other like time travel mystery stories and the other like small town mystery stories that I've seen. It's not a murder mystery; it's more of a time travel based story. But we end up having these like interlocking families over time, like experiencing like different aspects of the stuff that's like a consequence of this time travel cave. And
Please.
And like only the audience can really like begin to put it all together, because it's like I don't think any single character really knows everything, because it's like, you want to think like the stranger, right? Like the stranger, he comes to town and it's like he's like got this carry room like full of like, all the clues about things that happened, and like, it seems like he's like, and eventually we find out, spoiler alert, in episode 10 that he's from the future. And and yet, like, his whole plan totally fails. Like, his whole plan actually, like, creates the thing.
Not only that, but there's somebody. So that's one level of, whatever for that plot line interest, But then on top of that, there's a character who already knows that. That's another thing, to have a character know that this person's plan, that they even know the person's going to do the plan, and then already know the outcome of that plan. So you're already, starting with a bit of a head scratcher there on how something was created before it was created.
Oh yeah,
which yeah.
Leaning into the paradoxes here.
They're very much leaning into the paradoxes. Yeah.
They're not worried about that because, there's like multiple versions of that where it's like, wait, like, how could that possibly happen? Who built that fucking machine? I can't wait to find out. It's like so confusing. It's like the blueprints came from one character.
Is this a good time to ask the question, from so yeah, that's another thing that makes the show interesting on the time travel thing, is it is leaning into the paradoxes. I think, sorry, were you finished with your point before I move on?
I think so, please. Okay. You're jumping off.
Well, yeah, so before I get to what I was just going to say, which I was going to ask the question, can you be your own parent? I wanted to take that time travel paradox question.
I know, right? It does feel like, I mean, how far are they from that anyway? Like they're verging on. Oh man, that would be so weird.
Yeah,
like I feel like there's no reason that that's not possible theoretically. I think if I understand the world correctly, like you can travel back in time, grow up, have kids, and that kid could travel back in time and have kids. So, I mean,
yeah, it would basically be like you grow up you become an adult, you travel back in time to before you were born, you meet your, one of your parents, you have sex with them, and then you have a kid.
Yeah. That's the weird part, I guess. You got to have sex with your parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but then that baby grows up and then is you, and then goes back in time and does it. And it's a weird thing where you can't, and that's why it's a paradox, because you can't really start that beginning, right, without it just already being true that you're your own parent.
Right.
And it's like, and it's a weird thing where it's like, if it can happen, or if it will happen, it already happened. And it's like in a weird way where, and obviously Tennant got into this, but it's like somehow the past takes into effect the future. Like whatever you're going to do later, in the past, you already did it, so it's already factored in. So obviously this is a huge deal with Mikkel and that whole storyline.
Yes.
And Well, anyway, but generally speaking, I just want to go back to my general thoughts on the show.
Sure.
And to go back to your point about the first podcast we did on the pilot. Yeah, I think it was tough to watch the show because the tone is very slow and brooding, which is a good tone.
Definitely.
And but I think it picks up pretty fast. And I think one of the things, because we're comparing it to other shows. The thing I didn't like about the show in the beginning was because I'm comparing it to Lost, and I felt like, one of the things that's interesting about Dark is it leans way into the sci-fi, and it's not even pretending to be anything else, and which is nice.
More so than Lost,
sci-fi.
I would say.
Yeah, and sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. I was gonna say it leans into the sci-fi stuff more than Lost. But the thing with Lost that I was comparing it to is that all of the characters on Lost they know they're sort of bound in the same central mystery.
Yeah.
Of where are they and what is the island, but the people on Dark don't. Right. And they all are slowly individually finding pieces of this central mystery of what's happening here. Oh, but that was the other thing I was going to say with Dark that I kind of like more, or at least it's different than Lost, is that some of the big questions get answered faster.
Indeed.
But what was weird to me is the way they got answered, there was almost like a nonchalantness to the answer. And it's just like, oh yeah, the cave. Yeah, it's just a black hole in there. That's it. Let's move on, guys. Oh, how did the black hole get there? Oh, it's just an incident at the factory. The power plant. Let's move on, guys. It's not like these crazy like the implications
Though I think that
matter.
Reveal turned out to be false, right? Like, at least that was my understanding.
Which reveal?
The reveal, it seems like they were telling us that the black hole opened because of the nuclear power plant. Like, they had some incident there, right? And there was they had to evacuate it seems strongly insinuated that that is the reason why the cave black hole opened. But I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like in the final episode, we find out that, in fact, that's not true. It wasn't the nuclear power plant. They were doing their own thing, and they put some barrels down there because they had to, hide some waste and stuff. But, my impression is that actually it was the stranger and his machine that opened the black hole. Not the nuclear power plant.
Yeah, I assume that's the final answer.
Yeah, I guess they could always revise it, but
because is it a thing where it was both things? It was
right.
Whatever he did, he didn't expect that the power plant had an effect on what he did, and that's why the plan failed. Was because of whatever. I'm a little confused on the geography because there's several places that are important. It's almost like Lost in the Cave of Light. Or in the different pockets of energy on the island where there's the power plant is obviously connected to the cave, where the black hole is, But then the attic, or not the attic, the little cellar,
oh, the bunker
hole in the ground, the bunker,
that's where the also 80s room is.
That's above the black hole or above the pocket of energy, or somehow it's connected.
Yeah, it's close by there. Yeah, I think they did say it was above. That sounds right.
They said, which is how is it above it? Is it
the cave goes down?
Is it at the power plant?
It's right by the power plant. I think they did say that. One of the now I forget who. One of the people running the power plant gave it to Helga, the guy who turns out to be one of the killers. Not actually the main one.
I think he lives there. I think.
Yeah. It seems like he lives
as
there.
As a kid, that's his part. Okay, so anyway, but
it was owned by the power plant. Whoever was in charge, I think so. I think it is right there.
I think his dad is the one in charge of the power plant.
Oh, okay.
When he's a kid, when he's a kid, I think it's Helga's dad who's in charge of the power plant.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Oh, but I did want to also agree that the advice to pay attention to the character names is one of the most important things you can do. So that was very helpful. I did the same thing. It was very helpful because there's so many characters, and then trying to remember people's relationship. I was reading through the synopsis and literally didn't know somebody was. Oh, I didn't catch that. Tiedemann, Egon Tiedelman's daughter is the first female head of the power plant in the 80s.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't catch,
Claudia.
I didn't catch that.
Claudia, who has a huge role in the story.
Yeah. And she's the older woman with the long gray hair.
Exactly.
Right? Later.
Yeah, that's her later. Yeah, we see her in the 80s as well when she first took the job, and she lost her dog as a kid in the 50s, and then it shows up again in the 80s.
Oh, I got so confused about that because I was like, when the dog showed back up, and I was like, how does she know the dog? Like,
yeah, that was her dog. I didn't get it either.
That's the thing that I want. That's the thing I want to talk about is the sort of contrivance of the cave, if you will. Mm-hmm. How sometimes it's really easy to time travel in that cave, and then sometimes you got to like specifically know where to go in order to time travel.
Totally.
And I'm curious if that's how intentional that is.
Yeah. So that actually makes me want to bring up my first and probably like most. This is the gate that I think is least likely to actually be answered by the show.
Okay.
Okay. This is so okay. In the first episode, as we all know, we saw it happen, right? Mikkel disappears, right? And there's an insinuation that his disappearance has something to do with the disappearance of the other kids, right? I mean, that's what we're led to believe, right?
Everything is connected.
Turns out, actually, his disappearance was different from the other kids. The other kids were kidnapped by Helga and Noah, and they were taken to this room and subjected to, I don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But Mikkel, no.
No, that's right. I knew that,
I don't know how. I don't know why. And this is really where the gate comes in. Because we see people go in the cave and time travel, right? And what they have to do is, like, crawl in there. There's a door with some Latin on it. And it opened a door. And then they go down a little corridor. And, like, then they come out of the cave. And then they're in the 80s or the 50s, depending on, whatever. Yeah. When they get in and which way to go and all that. Because you can go, like, both ways. It's a whole thing. So, like, we find out that Mikkel actually went to the 80s, right? Yeah. And there he, stays and grows up and becomes Jonas's, Donnie Darko's, like, father, who kills himself at the beginning of the show, right?
Yeah, we gotta talk about that.
For reasons unknown. I think we still haven't learned why he killed himself. I still don't know. It seems like it shouldn't be a coincidence that he killed himself the day that Mikkel disappeared, or no, that's not even true.
That's not true. That's what should be true. That's what I want to be true.
Because the kid had been away from.
It was 7 months.
Yeah. So actually, it was like well before that.
What's really
the letter was supposed to be opened the day Mikkel disappeared. That's
the big question is, why did he kill himself so far in advance from the day he disappears as a kid?
Yeah, that's the thing. And it's like, on the one hand, like, I wanted to make sense of, even though it's not even true, like, I think it still doesn't make sense because, like, Mikkel was there, right? For the, like, why is it weirder when Mikkel disappears than when he's there? Like it's still him, right? I don't know. Like, to me, in a way, it would be, like, easier to keep going when he's gone because, like, now you don't have to be like, that's me over there. Like, I don't know. Am I crazy?
Me in the corner. Losing my religion. That's me in the cave. Yeah.
Anyway,
I agree. It makes some sort of sense that at least there's some symmetry, I should say, with killing yourself the day you disappear or something.
Yeah.
But I still don't understand. I'm assuming it has something to do with some idea of which apparently is a big deal. But yeah, that's a gate.
Did he know that? I mean, I guess he knew some stuff. He had all that shit in the attic, but like I'm kind of curious how much he actually knew. It's not really clear.
Well, I don't know what the letter even says, right? They didn't really read all those pages to us didactically, so
Didn't
it's hard to.
Or they just read part of it. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I mean, I think they maybe even flash back during some of the reading. I can't remember quite.
Oh, okay.
But I my point is, I don't know everything that was in the letter. If it like what it all was about.
So the letter is like the compass, by the way. It's like this weird thing where like he burns it, but it was actually the letter from the future, and then he gets it again, and it's like, oh god.
Yeah, so he like never gave it to anyone or something. It's like a weird because he gets it. So yeah, it's like the origin is from the guy from the future.
Yeah, which was him.
He carried it with him. So that's what's weird, right? Is you don't know when he originally got it because there's a timeline where he carries it with him through.
I think
adulthood.
we see when he gets it. I think he gets it.
Well, but that's not the original. But that's not the original timeline.
I think that is.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, like the stranger sends the old one to him, the old one from the future to him. But the original one that we saw in the pilot is Inez has it, and he gets it from her after he burns the previous one from the future. So that's what I'm referring to in terms of like that's
where did she get hers from?
I think she got it from Mikkel. Like I think he sent it to her or something.
Okay.
She adopted him. Like she was basically his mother, at least like after he time traveled to the 80s.
Yeah, I assume she got it, or I thought something like she was first at the crime scene and
it could be. I don't think they really showed it.
They don't show it.
That, like, yeah, maybe because she was family, like they just gave it to her. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a personal thing.
Yeah.
So she gets it. He writes it. She gets it.
I mean, he had other families. I still don't really get it. But anyway, that makes me think that it was addressed to her or something. Although they didn't really say that. But anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why she had that. It was kind of mysterious early on because you didn't even know who that was and why she had the letter.
Yeah,
and like now I kind of get why she would want the letter, but I don't really get why she got the letter.
Well, is this a good time to talk about what she even knew and when she knew it? Because I got confused on that. Did she only know that Mikkel was a time traveling kid after she read the letter, or did she know it before?
I think she said in the scene where she gives it to Jonas, I think she said that she knew. Like that he...
Well, she said that she knew, but then she was all about... But then I read the letter, and it was like a whole big deal. So I couldn't tell. But then didn't she say like she didn't know the whole time? Right?
I thought she was saying that... I thought she was saying she knew the whole time.
Well, but she doesn't believe... I mean, in the version of her in the past doesn't believe he's from the future from what we've seen. That was my interpretation. So at some point after she adopts him, she believes it.
Yeah. We didn't actually see her believe it. Yeah, so saying the whole time is not really accurate, but I guess I'm saying she knew well before he killed himself. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, yeah, because Jonas did ask something like, why didn't you stop, or whatever, which means somehow she knew that he's, well, I guess she had to change his name, right? Oh, he went by Michael. Oh, okay.
He went by Michael, and he changed his last name, too.
Yeah. Which
From
makes sense because he got adopted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Was that the last episode? Or was that episode 9?
I think that might have been the last one.
Okay. Yeah, I was hoping to actually see if there's just to see what exactly was said there. Because I don't specifically remember. Let's see here. Okay. he told. Okay, here it is. Yeah. These lines are weird. I I thought he had an overactive imagination. He told me he came from the future. I didn't believe him. If you knew, why didn't you stop it? I didn't know he would take his own life. Okay. Yeah, this does make it sound like maybe she didn't know until the letter.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like,
yeah.
But then he says, "If you knew, why didn't you stop it? Stop what? Like, from the time she read the letter till now, there was no time to stop anything." So,
Yeah, stop what? Yeah, stop him from killing himself. I mean, she says, "I didn't know he would take his own life." Maybe he's just saying that, like you knew he was. You thought he was delusional. I don't know. I don't understand that line. That's weird. It's like if he's delusional, maybe he'll kill himself. I don't know. Is he going that far? If you knew, why didn't you stop it? I didn't know that he would take his own life, but you could have saved Mikkel. Okay. Yeah, it's confusing.
Indeed. Yeah, some of the time travel stuff is so weird when they try to interact with the past or influence something, and like, so when the stranger shows up to Jonas before he goes to rescue Mikkel in the 80s, he basically convinces him not to do it,
Right.
but it's like he is Jonas in the future, so it's like he has to remember this moment. But that means he like always had a memory of this moment. It's such a weird thing to conceptualize.
Yeah, he knew it the whole time, and then he went back and fulfilled the thing that he remembered happened. Like, I think he said that in the scene where he comes to him in the 80s room, that like he remembered it, but from the other side.
So that's that's what's crazy about how the future affects the past. So even before the future happens, it can be affecting you in the past, which I thought was an interesting idea. So anyway, going back to what you said like an hour ago about Mikkel's disappearance being different.
I haven't even gotten to the gate thing yet. But go ahead.
I haven't even gotten to the gate.
Yeah,
okay.
I just had to set the stage,
Yeah, sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but
no, please, that's what we're here for.
Okay, let's get to the gate, because I was just going to say, with Mikkel's disappearance being different, I just thought the idea of like a time traveling kidnapper was really interesting. It's almost like the perfect crime, because but what's weird, right, is they return the bodies. Oh no, that makes sense. Yeah, okay, no, that's why it's the perfect crime. You return the bodies back to where they came from, and the evidence doesn't stay where the crime actually happened. So I was like, that's an interesting idea, But I'm a little confused on exactly what's happening with Helga and all that stuff.
I don't think they really told us, but yeah. I feel like that's actually something that may come later in terms of the concrete, like Noah's plan, basically, because like he was real vague about it. There's a scene with him and Bartosz.
Which is like, how did Bartosz get conscripted into this? That was a weird. I have to assume it's only because Bartosz is integral something in the future already. Because he just got him out of nowhere. He was just like, "Oh, I'm just gonna bring you into my plan."
Yeah. He went to meet him, and he tried to get Jonas to come along, but he didn't. I forget why. But then he ends up just going alone, and like,
wasn't it a drug deal? He was like, "I'll be the new Eric."
Noah was the drug dealer. He's
like, "I'll be the new Eric, so I'll just get the drugs and sell it." And then like he gets to meet Noah, and then like all of a sudden it's just not about that anymore. Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, right. And he like really takes it easily. Like it's not. Yeah, he's real chill about it. But anyway, just to say, like, Noah like gives a sort of vague idea of what the plan is. I think in that scene,
he wants to save people.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, we're the good guys, Bartosz. Like that was sort of the gist. And I think there's a scene with Helga too, in like we finally see them in the 80s room, just to like finally put the fine point on, yes, it's these two doing the 80s room stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually one of my other gates that wasn't so much of a gate as a confusing point. But anyway, I think there's some lines in that scene too, sort of vaguely saying what they're trying to do with the chair. Though I have to admit, I still don't really understand the chair. That's a big question mark for me. Anyway, getting back to here's the gate. So the gate is like, I don't understand how it happened. Like, it makes no sense to me. Like they hear a noise, right? And then like the flashlights go off, I mean, never mind.
Wait. What scene are you talking about?
From the first episode, when Mikkel disappears initially. Like, so like the setup is like they go out there to get the redhead's drugs, right? Eric, right? He's stashed his drugs out by the cave, like you do, I guess. And so they go out there to get them, and then and Mikkel tags along basically. Mm-hmm. And while they're out there, like they hear this noise, and then like the flashlights go crazy. We see that happen multiple times. It's
Desmond didn't press the button.
Doesn't press the button. It seems like it's connected to the power plant, but it affects.
No, it's the black hole. It's whenever the black hole.
It's clearly the black hole. I know, but it's like it does the electricity. But anyway, that's clearly what it is. Anyway, so then like they all start running.
So that's the stranger arriving the first time.
Yeah. And they all run, right? And basically, like I think it's Jonas who's sort of with Mikkel, and then like loses track of him. Yeah. And suddenly, like, they regroup and he's gone, right? And they never see him again, right? Because he's gone to the 80s. And I'm just like, I don't get, like, he ran into the cave. Like, he's, right? The scary thing happens, you run into the cave, he goes through this door and down this court. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I'm just, I don't understand how he ended up there. Like, it makes no sense to me.
I agree. And that's why I was saying with the dog, where it seems like there's another way you can time travel in the cave that you can just find by happenstance that's not so needing of a specific set of actions. Like, go and go this way and crawl down the Jeffries tube under the cave and open this door and go that way. I agree that it's like a retroactive thing where, like, once they show you after he disappears how the time travel works, you're like, well, then how did he do it?
Yeah, exactly.
It seems like if he knew that he could have done that before. So when he goes back to the cave to try to escape back to the present, back to the future, if you will, he can't find what he's looking for to get to where he, what he did last time, and apparently he just gives up and never tries again his entire life, which
even
is a little weird.
Worked,
especially if it was as specific as, I went through some doors, I know it's still there, I just gotta. It's a matter of time before I can just try. The cave is only so big, right?
Right.
So it seems like if he really wanted to get back, he could. He would spend his life being an expert on that cave. So he could get back to the future, back to his family and stuff. So it does seem a little bit of a contrivance that he just decides to, or there's just
only to kill
something in that
later.
letter.
Like,
or in the letter. Yeah, I agree. That's a gate for sure.
Wait, what did you want him to say in the letter?
Well, I don't know if the letter explains his actions, of like, after a while I decided this is my life and this is what's, whatever his reasoning might be that he wouldn't do what we think would be the obvious thing, which is to just keep trying to find the cave, or the path that he had before.
Yeah, there's a chase scene with Ulrich where, like, the police are after him and he tries to, like, run into the cave to, like, go back to the future, And it's like, we're at that point where it's like, we've mastered this shit. We can just walk in, time travel. It's fine. Like,
it's
for the people who know, it's not that hard, right? It's not, you don't have to have any fancy knowledge to do it. Like, if you know where it is and you know where it goes, like, you can do things intentionally, So it's like, it's just, like, I don't know. It's weird to me that happened. And, with the dog, I don't remember who it was, but I think like someone threw something into the cave that the dog chased after.
It was who it was one of the kids, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
was one of
forgot
the
one of
kids.
the
It was definitely one of the
yeah.
kids. I don't
But
remember
yeah,
which one.
that's why it seems like you can just somehow there's just like a pocket somewhere you can accidentally step into and go through.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know if that's what they really want us to believe, but that's just from those two instances, the dog and Mickle. It seems like that's what is happening.
But I'm just
Uh,
trying to say, like the dog had a reason to go in the cave at least. Like, it's just weird to
yeah,
me that he would even go in the cave, let alone like end up, like I don't know,
yeah.
like
Unless we're
oh
supposed to
shit, let's
think,
run into the cave. Like, what are you
yeah,
doing?
yeah. Because I was gonna say, I remember there was a period of time where I thought the stranger took Mickle and made him like took him and threw him
Mm-hmm.
into the hole, into the door or
Oh, like
whatever.
a Miss Hawking, like I have to fulfill the timeline
Yeah,
kind of thing.
like I know Mickle appears
Yeah,
here, and I'll have to be the one to make
I
it
have to make
happen.
it happen. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I
but
guess that
Mickle
would be an
never.
answer. It would
But
make sense.
the reason I don't really claim that as a theory is because I
I
don't
never
believe
thought that.
Mickle ever said like there was a man and he
Who
took
took me
me
here?
or
Yeah, he
yeah.
never said that. You're totally right. I feel like
So
yeah, it's like they get stuck on I'm from the future, but they never press him on like detail. Yeah, but
well,
like
exactly.
how
Like, how did you? Because if he said there were some doors, right? There's some
yeah, yeah,
doors in the
exactly.
cave. Yeah.
Yeah. Check that shit out. Like, go there and see what happens. Like, if he
Hmm.
gets someone to do it, it's going to be like, look, it
Hmm.
works. Like, come
Hmm.
on. I'm not just making shit up. Like, it's.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, whatever.
That's a contrivance. I think it's hard to really feel like that's an organic reasoning on his part. So.
Yeah, I think it is an example of like a thing that happens on a lot of TV shows where like a thing happens before they tell you what's happening, and then
Hmm.
by the time you find out sort of the general explanation, like the previous way they showed it doesn't really work anymore.
Yeah.
It feels like it's that kind of thing where it's really about the way they want to build the mystery and not so much
Hmm.
about like being
Hmm.
realistic. And I think the other thing that's like a big problem, like a reason why they can't get rid of it is because it's like a central plot point. Like, like you can't just not have that happen because it's like a big inciting incident for a lot of stuff that happens in the show. So, it's like it has to happen, but like, but why though? I do feel like if he was kidnapped, it would have made more sense. But yeah, it would have meant those scenes should have been different then. So it's like they need him to go voluntarily, but accidentally.
That's exactly what happened. Yep.
So yeah, it's like anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
and it doesn't make sense that he would run into the cave when he's scared of a sound that
yeah,
came out of the cave.
exactly. Yeah, that was the thing I couldn't digest later when they showed us like what was going on because at first you don't know what's going on in the cave, so you think any number of
And
things are possible.
here's another thing that could have happened. They could have said happened, which wouldn't exactly make sense. But and another thing we can talk about is Jonas seeing his dead father. Right, these hallucinations he's
That is
seeing.
another thing I absolutely had to bring up because
Yeah,
that is something that to date for me makes no sense. I don't understand that.
crazy
That's so strange.
yo. He's
What
crazy Jonas. I said he's crazy yo, and they turned that
crazy?
into crazy Jonas.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that is the answer, right? Like, there's nothing with the black hole that would make us think, and none of the like really sort of over explanations that they've had as far as
Yeah.
dialogue on the show about the black hole leads us to believe it can let you see dead people. So I have to assume, and no one else has seen a dead person, right?
No, they haven't
So
shown that ever again. But that's the thing, you don't know that in the pilot, right? In the pilot, like anything's
yeah,
possible. And I'm
yeah,
thinking like seeing dead people is part of the story, but it really isn't. And then it develops. And I remember around episode like 7 or 8 or so, I was like, we haven't seen like oily dad. I don't know. I've seen some people describe him as like bloody. I don't know what that's supposed to be. It looks like oil to me. It looks like someone poured oil on him. And I don't understand. Like, even if he's imagining it, it's just in his head, which is fine. Like, why? Why is he covered in oil? I don't understand.
Because he was a painter and he's covered in oil paints.
He gets like oil like on his face.
I know. Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense.
It's so weird. And they went back to it. They actually showed him again. I think actually, if I remember right, in episode 10, it's the stranger seeing him. If I remember right, which means Jonas in the future.
And he's still
seeing it. Yeah, exactly. It's like, what does that mean? Is that actually...
Especially, you know, what's weird too, though, is like, it's weird for him to be still seeing his dad, hallucinating his dad, after he has understood his dad's death and the circumstances around that.
Yeah, totally.
Seems like that might help your issue, but apparently it didn't.
No, he's still like stuck on it. I don't know. Yeah, it's really strange, and I just wonder if they thought that through. If there's actually like a lore explanation, or if it's just a character thing. Like, and it's just for atmosphere or something that they have him oily. I just like, why not have him look normal?
If he looks normal, then he's not scary, right? If it's his psyche, you know, right. I think they're trying to, you know, get across how he's seeing his dad, right, in this horrific way, right? And so, right. I think if he, you know, so if he looks normal and Jonas is acting like he's seeing something horrific, it wouldn't read to us. We wouldn't understand why he's reacting to someone looking normal. Right. Obviously, but he's dead. But I think if you make him look disgusting and gross and scary, then it's like, it makes sense that, you know, he's seeing this, that this is a nightmare, you know, for him, you know. But I agree, like, it looks like it might it's supposed to be blood, but it does look black. But I think it's just supposed to be creepy ghost dad. And that
the shirt does look like it's covered in paint, like that. To your point, like the shirt looks convincing, but it's just like it's on his arms too. It's like it's all over his body for some reason. Like, yeah,
I think it's metaphorical to, like, you know, he drowned in darkness or something, or right. You know what I mean? Like,
sure. Yeah, I just like you said. I mean, the show is, like, generally speaking, like, not. I feel like they don't go for. It feels to me like generally they're staying in a pretty sci-fi, like, you know, the stuff that happens. It's crazy, but it's like based on technology and science, you know, and like that just stands out as like not fitting into that like general model. So it just, I don't know. It's a weird one for me.
The show starts with Jonas having a nightmare. You know,
True.
So the first scene is the death. Well, the first scene is the wall of the pictures and the threads connecting everybody. But then the second scene is the dad killing himself, and then we cut to Jonas waking up in a nightmare. Now, I don't know if we're supposed to think that was his nightmare,
right?
Because he doesn't even know about the letter yet. So why would he have a dream about a letter he doesn't know about?
Right.
So it doesn't really make sense. I don't know if that's supposed to be a thing we don't think about.
Yeah.
So they do that sometimes. I think most of the time when he's having a nightmare, like when we see something and then they make it clear that was his nightmare.
What he was dreaming, They showed that a couple times,
Yeah. And then what's weird is, right, later he's talking to Peter, his psychiatrist, and he said, I'm seeing my dad, and he says, oh, yeah, in your dreams. And Jonas doesn't say yes or no. We're thinking, yes, we saw, you know, we think that was a dream he had with his dad, but also there's this apparition thing.
Not that time at the caves. He was definitely not dreaming that time.
Yeah,
he was fully awake.
Yeah.
And the stranger version was the same. Like he was seeing him in his dreams, but as far as I can tell, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone who's a trivia expert. Like, I don't think he ever saw Oily Dad in the dreams. I think Oily Dad, he's been awake every time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that actually means anything or if that's just a coincidence.
I think Oily Dad is the hallucination. I think
Oily Dad's hallucination. Yeah.
The other dads are it's flashbacks.
Just dreams. Yeah.
Or dreams. Yeah.
Yeah. Dream flashbacks. Whatever. Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to talk about the chair, or?
Sure, yeah. What do you got in the chair? Because I don't fucking get it. Like, why are they strapping kids to chairs and like zapping their eyes? Like, what's the point? Like, I get that it has something to do with the plan, but like, what is going on?
Because children should be seen, not heard.
Okay.
So
isn't it more like children should be? I don't know what, like,
children should not be able to see.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
So I got listen, I don't have any answers, but my understanding or my thinking is that they are Noah is trying to come up with an easier way to time travel. It's easier or faster or something with this chair thing, and they're using the kids as guinea pigs. So that's a general foggy explanation, and then it branches off into more deep.
I definitely got that idea, but
like I guess the kids. Yeah, I don't even know now. Now I don't even know what they're trying to do, what they expect to happen. So the time traveling kid we did see was Mads. So we saw it was Peter, right? He was in the basement cellar. What's it called? Bunker. And a wormhole opened up. A rift in space opened up, and Mads fell out, right? I didn't dream that, right? That was a plot point on the show.
Yeah, that absolutely happened. Yep,
sounds like nonsense, but that was what happened. Okay, so what's weird about that is, was that the machine working?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that, because we see the redheaded kid get dumped in the woods by a hooded figure. Hooded figure is going to be my second gate. Anyway, I'll get back to that.
There's two hooded figures?
Because there's two hooded figures. I got so frustrated. I was like so confused by that for a long time. I was like, really? Are there actually two? They keep showing hooded figures, and they show them in shadow, and they show them from behind, and it's like, it would be so weird if there's two, but like for a long time, I'm like, it doesn't make any sense unless there's two. There have to be two.
Yeah.
And then there were two. And I'm like,
it's like two groups of others, but this time there is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was just so strange. It was like, were they trying to make us suspect the stranger? Like, was that the trick of the hoods?
Yeah.
Like,
I think we were supposed to think the stranger was involved with the kidnappings.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it seemed like. They were just that. It's just so weird. But I don't know. I just found that choice confusing. Anyway, so I assumed that the hooded figure who was dumping the body was Helga, the other hooded figure, and dumping it in the 50s because that's where they find him in the earliest time period. Along with the other kid, the deaf one, who was taken,
Oh, hold on! Hold your horses!
What? Okay.
Let me get my head around this because I don't even think I understood the plot. So Mads is kidnapped in the 80s.
Yep.
And winds up in the 50s.
No, not Mads. Eric. Sorry, I switched topics. Because
Mads only goes from the 80s to the future to the
one by one, the kids, right? So I think the original one was Mads, although time is weird to even talk about on the show. But let's just say the original one was Mads. He was taken in the 80s.
Yes.
And his body was somehow pushed through a black hole into the 2019, so-called present day. Although then later on, they're like, no, that's actually the future. But then there's an extra future. Let's not talk about that right now. Anyway.
Yeah.
So that's Matt's story. And then we find out that actually, Peter sees him, right? And then they're the ones who put him in the woods, right? It wasn't even the bad guys. Like they found out from Claudia about like some of this like time travel shit, and that's how they're like sitting in that bunker and like looking at dates and stuff. And they have this notebook, this like Faraday journal or whatever.
Yeah,
and,
I gotta hand it to the show, and when you jump into a time travel paradox, or a loop, and then like there's already someone who's gone through it and knows what, there's a book that has the answers, and everyone's gonna want that book, and everyone's gonna want the clues because it's the key to the power, it's so funny.
Yeah, exactly. So like it wasn't even the killers who dumped the body. Like clearly they killed him because he had the eye thing. Like he was clearly in the chair. Like I don't believe, I think he was also taken by Noah and Helga basically and subjected to the thing they're doing. But yeah, then his body ends up. I don't know why exactly. Yeah, I think your point is a good one. Did the chair work? Maybe. I don't know.
Because that room is where the 80s room is the same room as
the bunker.
The
80s room is the bunker in the 80s, which is like so literal. I love it.
Yeah.
Because it confuses
it wasn't someone forcing Eric to watch something from the 80s. That was just current television programming and
exactly. That was it. That was all it was. That's just what's on TV.
I think that's a great example of some sort of Occam's razor when it comes to TV watching. When you see that scene, a kid, a setting in the 80s with a person from the 2000s, and there's only two ways that it's either really the 80s or not,
Right. Yeah.
And for us to go, well, clearly it's someone in the 2000s who decorated this room as an 80s room, and to me that was the more rational explanation. Versus, he just time traveled to the 80s, duh.
Right. Right. No, I totally agree. That was the same thing I thought.
Even though in the show it's about time travel, I still didn't think, he time traveled to the 80s. That's where he is.
Yeah. It was, even when they figured out that the bunker was the 80s room, I still didn't... It took me a while before I put together that, like, that's just what the room was in the 80s, like, period. With the wallpaper and all that. Like, that was the period. It's a little bit Tenet where it's like, they control the room during this time period and other people control it at other times. It's like, there's like that kind of thing where it's like... Can
I mention a mini gate related to the room?
Sure. Yeah.
There's one of the first scenes... Maybe the second or third or fourth scene with Noah, we see the evil Noah basically, where he has a shirt. I think he has his shirt off, and this is when we see the back tattoo.
Oh, with the tattoo, yeah.
But anyway, there's a scene. I believe it's him cleaning a blood spot off of the floor of the bunker. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
What? I don't understand when that happened. What's the context of that scene?
There's a couple of scenes with Noah that are like out of context where I'm not really clear when. I have no idea. Is my answer.
Because it's like it's not the 80s because it's not designed like the 80s.
It doesn't look like the 80s room. Yeah, so it must be a different time period.
But he's cleaning out blood like somebody just died there or something.
Yeah, that's true.
Now we know Mads gets killed in that room. We present from the machine.
Right, but seemingly from the chair, which is the 80s thing. So.
Yeah. So I was like, why are we seeing this scene?
Yeah, as far as I can tell, all the kids... Oh, you know what it could have been? I don't remember when that happened, but what it could have been is it could have been Helga, right? Because Ulrich tries to kill Helga and dumps him down there. The bloody face, maybe it was like blood from him.
So
'50s.
so in the 50s, Ulrich leaves, yeah, Helga to die in
In the
there.
bunker, yeah.
But
He pulls a Saeed basically, and he's like, "I'm gonna kill
but
you before you can do anything wrong."
here's what happens, right? If I'm not mistaken, a wormhole opens up.
Indeed.
And Jonas and oh wait, sorry, that's not that's the 80s. Oh, that's what's weird. That's what's weird. Did you catch that?
Catch
Because
what?
that that Jonas is in 20. Is he in the 80s?
No, he's in the '80s room.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's in
he's
the
in the
80s
'80s.
room.
Yeah, yeah.
And then oh, that's right. And then
He was
Helga's in the
kidnapped.
50s.
He was kidnapped in the '50s. I think is that where he went? No, I'm trying to remember. He
No,
time travels and he
he goes to the
goes
80s.
to. Oh, he got. Oh, so he's just in the '80s. Yeah, so they just take
He
him to the
goes
'80s.
back because he's gonna get Mickle for real this time. He's like,
Right,
I'm gonna
right.
go
But
get
they're
Mickle.
waiting for
They're
him.
waiting
Yeah,
for him. They put him
yeah,
in there. Okay,
yeah.
so Helga and Jonas trade places.
Is that what happened?
That's what I'm
Because
assuming happened because Helga ends up in the 80s room,
right.
and I'm assuming well, I don't know. And then Jonas, because Jonas can't die in that room. Obviously, his
He
future
doesn't
self knows
die.
that too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he doesn't die in that room. So I think he's supposedly gonna go to the. No, he wakes up in the future. That's what's weird.
That's what I was just gonna
Instead
say.
of him trading places with Helga and going to the 50s, he goes forward to the future.
Yeah,
They
it's like
both
they
go to
both
the
went
future.
forward. Yeah, they both went forward. It was very confusing. And I think he doesn't even go. Is he even in the room in the future? Or is he in a different place?
You know what? I agree. I think he's in a different place. I don't think that,
I thought he got transported to a different place, which is like really crazy.
or unless in the future the bunker is expanded and it's bigger because they know it's like a
Oh,
special place or something, so they made it bigger.
oh, wait. Is that when he goes to the far future?
Yeah, the far future.
Oh, so maybe by then, like maybe he is in the same place,
Yeah,
or
maybe it's the same place and they made it bigger in the future.
yeah, okay, right. Because we don't know anything about the future timeline. Really, we barely see it at the end. So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it would make more sense if it's at least the same place,
Yeah.
even if it looks different. Yeah, okay, yeah. I think I didn't think that through because I was so blinded by all the stuff that was happening. Yeah, during the '80s time. So
Okay,
that's
and
my best
then
guess.
that almost helped. I mean, that almost fixes it for me in my head but now why would he be cleaning up that blood unless it has something to do with the timeline and he's like they can't find evidence of something because he's working with
Yeah,
Helga
I mean,
and he,
he's working with later Helga. I don't know if he was working with him when he
but
was a
he's a
kid.
time
I
traveler, so he
actually was
knows that Helga is going to grow up to be
yeah.
working with him.
I was thinking that maybe that's when he met Helga. Like they didn't really show this, but I was thinking that because he gets transported to the '80s room, I was thinking that maybe he would meet older himself / Noah for the first time, like at
Mhm.
that point, and that's maybe how he
That's what
gets
I thought.
recruited
That's what
or
I
how
thought he
that
was
whole
going
thing
to like
starts.
meet. In the '80s, young Helga would meet uh, Noah, and he would start to indoctrinate
Yeah,
him as a kid there and teach.
yeah.
But it's a little weird. I don't know. By the time he's older, I don't know. I'm curious to see kind of what this.
Yeah, by the time he's older, he regrets it. And there's a whole
Well,
like
he's
confrontation
middle
with Helga
aged.
and middle-aged
Then,
Helga.
well, by the time he's middle aged, he's still doing it. It's really
Yeah,
when
yeah,
he's
yeah.
yeah. So
That's what I'm
that's
saying.
what I mean. What's
Elderly.
weird? It's the elderly version, and I don't know why he decided at that point he needs to stop. And why does he even think he can stop? There's that whole thing where people are trying to change the past or change the future while they're in the past.
Yeah.
And it's not clear that can happen. Um, it'll just be the same thing you always did. So yeah, when the oldest Helga tries to, you know, kill the middle-aged one, and it's like, well, you can't.
It's not going to work. So yeah, that's another like larger question I have about the show because it's time travel and I think they haven't violated it yet, but like yeah, how whatever happened is it, are they really committed to everything we see and every time travel manipulation has already occurred, like in a sense, right? So if you're living in a moment in time, whatever's been manipulated before that has already happened. And there's no changing it, right? That's what the whatever happened thing should mean, or can they actually, because like the Saeed like Ben thing with Ulrich and Helga like turned out the same way, where it was like he tries to kill him, but he doesn't, and so it's like
yeah.
Could he not, or did he just fail? Did he just fail to like do enough damage? Is it as simple as that? Like,
yeah,
like, or was it? He lived, so he didn't. Like, are we back to that like kind of thing? The other thing I was going to say is I just looked up the Meta Witches summary, and they say it's the bunker he wakes up in. So anyway, just to confirm, so Claudia is using it at that point and is like put up all the pictures and has weapons in there and stuff. So she's using it in the future, and so anyway, but it is the same bunker apparently. I recommend anyone who wants like a really detailed recap of every episode. Meta Witch is very helpful for me, at least, because like I would forget details, and they would always have every scene, even the scenes that seem like they don't matter. They would just tell you everything. So yeah, I just appreciate it. It's like if we were doing scene by scene, like it would be super useful.
Cool. So how old is Claudia? Because wasn't she in her 40s in the 80s?
Yes.
So
she should have been. Yeah, she should have been. I was talking about that. I think she's about 100.
Right.
That's my
that's
my
like
guess.
A conservative estimate is that because it's 33 years to each time period. So
if she was 40 in the 80s, she should actually, assuming the 33 thing stays consistent, she should be 106.
Yeah.
If she's 40, I mean, maybe she's like 35. I don't know. That doesn't help that much. Then she's 101.
So that's a little crazy.
He's old as hell. Yeah, that's a lot. I think that's what it has to be, though. I don't know. I don't know how else to make sense of that.
Maybe the radiation that she found, the radioactive waste, extended her life.
Helped her live longer. That's not usually how that works. But okay, cool. I like it. It has its upsides.
The black hole. Blah blah blah.
Black hole. Yeah, why not?
I'm curious to see with this future. Now, I'm always a little dubious sometimes when especially with time travel, when like a show is like, has a bunch of outstanding questions and they just flash to a new timeline and go, well, don't worry about that. We're dealing with this timeline here now. So I'm curious to see with season 2, are they going to still be jumping through all the time periods, or are we going to spend a lot more time with the future? And what are they ultimately going to be doing with this time travel mechanic, right? So we already have this idea of the stranger, future Jonas, trying to destroy the black hole. But which again, it should be like, well, dude, if you were gonna destroy it, it wouldn't be here.
That goes back to whatever happens.
Especially like since he's traveling in the past, right? So if he's from a future where the black hole wasn't destroyed, then it didn't work. He didn't do it. But somehow you should be able to do it, but you just didn't. It's a weird one. It's a weird one.
Yeah. Just to finish the rundown with the kids. So So the Mads thing is kind of mysterious. I'm not 100% sure why he's dumped in 2019, but anyway, that's what happened on screen, so I'm not going to deny it. Then we have Eric, the original kid who disappeared like before the first episode, basically. Like we see the posters in that pilot.
Yep.
And we see him in the room too. Like that's the first time we see the room. And then there's this other kid who's the deaf kid, like friends with the daughter of the police chief, Charlotte, I believe.
Yep.
Who disappears and is taken by them. And actually, the daughter has an encounter with Noah where she gets this watch that I don't think I really understand at this point. But anyway.
It's a watch from Charlotte. He's like, you used to own this, and he.
It was daughter. From her. That was the idea.
What was that?
It was like the compass or something. This is something that belonged to you before. Like that's what you're saying.
Yeah. It was hers, I think, from when she was a kid or something.
It was hers from when she was a kid. Okay. Something. That was the point of the watch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a clue. And she eventually like finds. Oh man, that's my second gate. All right, I'll get back to that.
I want to know. Yeah, I got to talk about that.
Right. So there's that kid. And Eric, and Mikkel is a fake one because he wasn't actually taken by Noah and Helga. He's doing his own thing.
Okay, and then so the deaf kid, he is taken. What do we see? What do we actually see? We see him wake up. Did we see him wake up in the 80s room?
I think we don't. I could be wrong, but I don't think they actually show that.
Okay,
I don't think they actually show that.
And I think you're going to get to this, but I'm confused about the two kids in the 50s. That's who
yeah. That's what I'm getting to. So I believe that what happened is that kid and Eric were taken to the 80s room, and eventually they died with the eye thing and all that. We see them both with the eye thing, and then they were taken. Their bodies were dumped in the 50s. I believe that's what happened.
So Eric and the deaf kid are dumped in the 50s, but Mads went to
2019. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, somehow. I mean, the weird thing is, like, I assumed, like, Helga just took their bodies through the time portal and then just dumped them in the woods. That seems like the most straightforward thing to do. I don't understand why Mads fell through a hole.
But I don't understand the two kids because they were at the construction site, so they were.
I know, right?
They were left at a place that they would be found. They weren't even left in the woods. They
did show the redhead Eric. They showed him being dumped by a hooded figure that I assume is Helga. Although obviously we can't be too sure. But at a certain point, it was fairly early on. I think it was actually episode 2. Where we see Eric's body being dumped in the woods, and it's just in the woods, right? They don't tell you don't see a context. So my assumption later was that it's actually, it turns out that it was actually in the 50s. I was a little confused by why they were in the construction site, but I guess the only way I can make sense of that is that they cleared some forest. To make way for the construction, and the place where the bodies are dumped, ended up being the construction site. That's my best guess.
Okay. Hey man, you're doing a good job. That's a stretch.
I mean, like we saw the body being dumped. The forest is right there by the power plant. It's not like
but both bodies were together. So
the other body must have been taken there at a different time that was off screen. That's all I can say about that. I don't understand why the second body was. I mean, we didn't see it get put there, I don't think.
Yeah.
But it's a reveal about what happened to that other kid, because I think we don't see that other kid after. I forget what the details of that encounter were. Like she met Noah, but he also met Noah by himself and got kidnapped.
It's like Noah went and met the girl and gave her the watch, but then he also took the kid. Well, Helga took the kid, I guess.
Or Helga took the kid. Yeah, maybe. Helga took the kid while Noah met the girl. Is that what happened?
Something like that. What I don't understand is why. How are they targeting the kids that they target? Does it matter? Is it has to do with the book or whatever knowledge they have about the future?
Yeah. Right.
I guess one question is to ask is what time period does Noah come from?
Oh yeah, actually, I think we know because I think it's basically heavily implied that that Noah is. Let me get this right. Noah is Ulrich's grandfather. I think that's what we find out, if I'm not mistaken. if I'm following my family tree right. So in the 50s, we see this woman with a son, arrive and take up a room. God, I'm not going to be able to get all the names right.
Yeah, I know you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, and the son is Chonta, who is Ulrich's father.
Yeah.
And there's some dialogue with the mother.
And she
talks about her husband being a priest, and to me it seemed like they were insinuating that was Noah. At least that would be at least that would be a valid theory. So if that's true, it would mean Noah's from the 50s. I mean, he would have been alive before that, but I guess if he time traveled even before that. Then it's possible that he's from any time. But assuming he can't time travel before that, he should have been from before that.
How about in the 2050s, he or whatever that would be. He time travel. He's like 10, and he goes back to the
2052, I think. Anyway, yeah.
And he goes back to the 1920s.
Yeah.
And then he grows
up. It's not
possible.
And then I can't
he
prove
meets
that
her. And maybe Noah and Ulrich are the same person.
Yeah.
He's his own dad. He's his own grandfather.
I mean, it raises the question of how he ever even found out about the time travel in the first place. If he started in the 50s, which is not where the time travel started, it doesn't as soon as we meet him, he's already time traveling. So it's really hard to get a ground on that character. I'm not sure, but I feel like that's the only clue we have about a history. And
he's connected. He has the book with the three circle symbol.
The three things.
That's the same on the black hole doors.
Right.
So,
right.
I think whatever's the secret society of ancients who built those, put the doors there, because that's the thing, right? Is it's apparently the machine that the scientist guy built that the stranger tries to use somehow creates the black hole. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. It supposedly created the black hole, but maybe it created the time loop that they're in. Mm-hmm. Because I don't understand. It seems like the black hole would have been naturally occurring or something. Well, I guess the question is, why are there doors down there? Little bitty doors.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. To me, that's a huge outstanding question. I thought we were going to find out. There's a scene with Alexander. Alexander is actually my second or one of my dates. I'll get to that in a minute. But Alexander, he's on the run from the law. And anyway. Eventually, there's a scene with him and Claudia. He later marries her daughter, I guess. There's a scene where he's like, "Oh, I do metalworking," And I actually thought they were going to be he built the door. I thought they were going to show us who built the door, But actually, he just welds shut one of the doors for the power plant. It actually had nothing to do with those Latin doors. So anyway. Just to say, I'm really curious about those doors. My first thought about the doors was, well, they can't have been built by actual people speaking Latin. They must be more recent, but that's because of my American bias. And I'm thinking that this is taking place in the United States. But actually, since it's in Germany, it technically could have been literally built by the Romans. I don't know if that's true, but it's they would have had access to that geographically. So I'm just gonna throw out that as a possibility.
Yeah, with the Empire and all that, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Like they were like messing around, like depending on how far back they want to go with it. And the Holy Trinity thing gets me now that we have a future because like originally it was like past, present, and future, which means the present's the 80s and the 50s is the past and the 2019 is the future. But then we get like an extra future thing, so it's like, is it really a 3? And it's like, hey, clockmaker, do you actually know what you're talking about? I love that you wrote a book on time travel, but we didn't even know there's a time machine in town.
Well, he didn't even know if it was even true. Yeah,
I know. It's like so weird. You would think he would know stuff, but like everyone's coming in telling him what to do. It's so weird.
Which is why he knows stuff.
Exactly. And it's like he gets a copy. He sees the book before he writes it. It's like, oh boy.
What was I going to say? Oh man, I forgot. The Doors. We're talking about the Doors.
Yeah, so I am very curious about the origin of Doors. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Well, I have it in my head.
Yeah,
please. Thought that. So when you go into the cave, there's like 3 passages, right? Because you come into one tunnel and then it forks into 2 tunnels. So that means in either spoke that you're on, there's 2 other ones, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of assumed, even before they showed the far future, that almost like when you come into the tunnel and if you make a left, you go to the past.
Right.
So if you're coming into 2019 and you make a left, you go to the 80s. And if you go back in the same tunnel, if you go to the left again, you go to the 50s.
Right.
And so that's what I thought that would just keep. I thought basically space and time is all connected for every interval of 33 years, all the way to the future and all the way to the past or something. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I thought it meant. Like there's this like fractal quality to it, where it's just this infinite thing. You can always go to so if you're in 2019 and like you go to the right, then you'll go to the future to the 50s. Yeah.
So
that's what I thought was happening. Right. But so far we don't know if that's true because I think we've only seen someone go to the far future with
through a crazy
means, not through the cave. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right. Although clearly other people have done it, so I don't know how they're doing it. We'll see. I mean, I would assume like the stranger comes from there, and like Claudia comes from there.
It could be that the Noah perfects his time machine, and so it's in play with the people in the future how to even more easily do time travel, and I think like that's what's interesting, right? Is it seems like now I'm confused. You said we saw Helga take Eric's body out of the bunker, right? Did we see him drag it out of the cave or out of the bunker?
That's a good question. All right, I can look it up. I remember what episode it's in, at least. I remember you see him dragging it in the woods, but I don't remember where that starts. Let's see here. Here we go. Let's go to search. This is a problem with it being detailed. It's hard to find things sometimes. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Okay. Anytime now, I'm sure. Okay. Here we go. Almost. Okay. Yeah. Oh my God, a lot of things happened. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So according to this, it sounds like it just starts with him being dragged through the woods. The guy in the hood dragging him through the woods, and they don't show like how he got there.
Okay. I mean, to me, it's like they're both options, but which is more plausible to you? That Helga? So they're in the 80s room. They zap Eric. Yeah. He doesn't time travel. He just dies. He takes his body and he drags it to the cave. and then he drags it in the little Jeffries tube through the doors and all the way out and dumps it in the construction site. It's just a German Jeffries tube.
Pretty much.
And he does that twice for each kid, right? Which seems crazy. Laborious even.
Very laborious.
Or when they zap the kids time travel. And what we saw, but they just go to like the bunker in the past.
Yeah.
And then he's dragging them from the bunker to wherever he's going to leave them.
I mean, I can't prove that didn't happen. And that might help with your blood on the floor, too, if they're getting zapped to the bunker. Like, if they got zapped to the bunker, you know, maybe they drop some blood in there in the 50s. Just throwing that out there.
They get zapped to the bunker in the 50s, and then the blood there. And so while Helga goes and moves the bodies to the construction site, Noah is cleaning up the blood. Well, that makes sense to me.
Right. I mean, it does. I think the only thing that's weird about it to me is that it means, like, the chair works, it just kills you. That's the only problem.
Yeah.
You totally travel through time, but you're dead. That's the only problem.
Yeah, well, the question, it's still unclear what the eyes have to do with anything. Why?
Totally agree.
Why there's an eye focus?
Doesn't seem like it has. It's like the cave stuff has nothing to do with the eyes, right? Like why do you need eyes? Like every time travel we've seen doesn't involve eyes, unless, like you said, the chair is actually making them time travel and they're not just getting dragged around. Which I agree, is simpler, but
like maybe that's the only problem. Is it needs to have the headpiece that goes around your brain or whatever for it to work, but the problem is it's zapping them and killing them, but it is making them time travel.
Yeah. I mean, that could be true. I mean, that's like a common trope in sci-fi is like the machine that it works, but you can't survive it. I mean, like Ant-Man had a version of that. It's a known thing. So
which is what the stranger basically said is he's trying to make this machine work. So
right. I guess I didn't think it worked that much that they could actually even time travel with it. But I don't have any particular reason for thinking that because they didn't say that.
Yeah, well, how else do you explain little Helga from the 50s going to the 80s through a wormhole?
Oh, well, yeah, but that wasn't the chair. I mean, that was the machine, right? That was like,
Well, no. I mean, sorry. I meant Mads. When Mads showed up.
Mads.
Yeah,
Mads. I don't get Mads. I'm confused about Mads. Like, who dumped Mads? Like, did Mads... Like, that's what you're saying, is that was the chair.
That was the chair.
Yeah. I mean, that helps. It helps because I have no explanation for that if it's not the chair. Like, it's just weird as shit. So, it's good in that way. I don't know. Maybe they will clarify that. I don't know. I don't know if we're moving on from the chair and all that, but because, like, it feels like it's about other stuff at this point, but... it'd be nice if they sort of clarified like what the chair does.
What does the chair do?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like we should know that. It's like I feel like we know so much, and there's some. I don't know.
One thing that seems to be sort of interesting is it doesn't look like Noah was doing too much in the 2019 timeline. So I do wonder if that means anything. Like, is the chair done by then? So he's not like he's still experimenting. And it seems like if he's only kidnapping kids to test the chair, right? Then so far he hasn't needed that many kids. Right?
Yeah, I think it's only been 3.
Yeah,
if I have my count right. So yeah. You would think if you had all time, he would have had more by now.
So it makes me think. It makes me think he's gonna get pretty close. He's gonna get the machine working pretty quick, or he abandons it for some reason.
Yeah.
The other thing I find interesting is the victims are all young boys, and I wonder why is that the case?
Yeah, they haven't even really focused on that or mentioned it explicitly.
Because the cops are no good in this town.
Yeah. And even from the other side, like the no Helga side, like they're not, they haven't said anything specific about why it would be boys. Like I don't know. It makes no sense to me. I just literally I have no idea why they're doing that. I would expect them to say something, Otherwise, I would expect them to show, I mean, they could say they're doing it to kids because I don't know X, Y, or Z reason that I could imagine. But I don't see why they wouldn't do it to a girl if the opportunity presented itself. I don't know. It doesn't, like clearly they can time travel. Like, why, I don't know. He's got some weird grudge against boys. I have no idea. Makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was like a, Catholic Church thing or like a character thing of, he was abused as a kid, so he's abusing boys or something, or if they're gonna get into some specific reason, even why, did he order Helga to go and because this would have been in the 80s, right? When Mads was taken in the 80s.
Yeah.
So was it Helga in the 80s who kidnapped him? Right? Yeah, because Helga in the 50s was a boy. So
exactly.
Okay, so he didn't time travel to kidnap Mads, but he did time travel to kidnap Mikkel. No,
Indeed.
Sorry, Mikkel's different.
Not Mikkel, but Eric and the deaf kid, yeah.
Eric and the deaf kid. So that's what's strange, right? Is he's like, I'll just take a kid from my current time period now for Mads, and then I'll dump him
in the future.
Somehow he went to the future.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, well, we need another kid. So then they get
Eric. And then it's Peter, like, dragging the body. See, that's just weird to me. Because it seems like they knew, if they knew to drag Eric's body, like, why didn't they know that Mads was going to be in the future? Was it like they couldn't get in the bunker at that time because Peter was there? Like, I don't know. I just find it weird how that plays out.
I assume they didn't know the body was going to go to the future.
Okay.
Or they just don't know how to calibrate it, right? It's,
they were still experimenting or something.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have the settings all figured out or something. And yeah, that could work. So that was just an accident. And that was like the first one, quote unquote. So it would make sense that one would be like more faulty. Whereas the other two, like they seem to know where they were going.
Well, but is it only because they were there by happenstance? Or did they actually know?
I don't know.
Actually, that one's easier because it's in their past, so they could know, right? Because that's how Noah could know about time travel.
Oh, if they already knew the bodies were found in the 50s, they'd be like,
well, if he goes to the bunker and he sees a body materialize from the future, he'll be like, oh, I guess there's something with time travel happening.
Yeah. I mean,
because Helga's basically gonna disappear from the 50s, right?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
But I guess he reappears as a kid in the 50s at some point.
I guess. Yeah,
no one's ever said he left as a kid for 100 years, right?
And he's there in the 80s working at the nuclear power plant.
Yeah, so he only disappears for a little bit of time.
Yeah. He gets taken back to the 50s after this.
So maybe that means that Noah, maybe they have the machine working or working enough to where they'll send young Helga back from the 80s to the 50s and he won't be dead.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine something like you can help me, but you got to be patient. You got to go back to your time, play it cool, whatever.
Maybe there's a thing where the machine only kills you if you go to a time period you're not from or something. Maybe there's some weird rules they have to work out.
Oh. Oh, okay.
So he can use the machine to go back in time because that's where he's from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which doesn't make it a good time machine unless you've already time traveled.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just assumed they were using the cave, but like, I mean, they definitely know about the cave, and
I
we definitely
definitely think yes, I
couldn't
definitely
figure
think they are
out
using the cave.
the
I
cave.
mean,
Okay.
yeah, I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying when they test the machine, like what the machine's actually doing, because I think they're trying to like find either more control or a better way. Obviously, like the cave is okay, but like it seems like they need this machine for something else.
Yeah, yeah. They want it to be more somehow accessible or portable or something along those lines.
Yeah, less cavey.
Less cavey.
Uh, so yeah, I was just thinking like maybe during their test, they're like, okay, we have we have Mads, we put him in the machine, and I guess that's what's weird, right? With the first test, if they send him to the future, they're not going to know if it worked or not, unless they also go to the future and find out what happened.
Right.
If he died from the trip or not, right?
Right.
So basically, they zap him.
Oh, sorry. I just had a thought. Go ahead. I'll
I
remember
was
this.
going to say they zap
Sorry.
him, and then they go to the cave to go to 2019, and then they see, oh no, he died. Okay, that's bad. So then they go back to the 80s, and then they. Oh no! So while they're there in 2019, they kidnap Eric,
Yeah.
and then they take him back to the 80s, and they put him in a machine. And then I don't know where they're trying to send him, but somehow he goes to the past. He goes to the 50s. Now, I guess they could go into the cave and then go back to the 50s and go, oh shit, he's dead. Okay, that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
But then they go not back to the 80s, but 2019, and they take the deaf kid. They
Mm-hmm.
take him through the caves
Yeah.
back to
Yeah.
the 80s. They put him in the machine. I don't know where they want him to go, but he ends up going back to the past.
Yeah.
And then they either have memory of what happened or they need to physically go in the cave and go back to
Mhm.
the 50s to find out what happened.
Right.
And then I guess it didn't work still. So now they need another person. But by this time, they get to the 80s and young Helga is there.
Yeah.
He's already in the in the room
Yeah.
because okay, that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is. Aha! That's why they want Jonas because he's
Yeah.
from the future.
Yeah.
So maybe they want to zap him, have him be in the 80s, and then see if they can either zap him from the 80s to 2019 or maybe even further in the future.
Yeah.
And then they take him because he's from the time period that they want to put him to. I don't know if this rule makes any sense, but it's somehow lining up a little bit. And then, but then of course he touches a wormhole and he switches places. So now Helga's there, but they're going to do
Right.
the same thing, and they're going to put Helga in this machine, and then he's going to go. Presumably he's going to go back to the 50s and be
And maybe
fine.
this time it'll work.
Yeah,
He won't be killed. He
he won't be
clearly wasn't killed
killed.
because
Kelly
he's alive.
wasn't killed, but
Yeah.
I still don't understand how the machine is very helpful yet.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. It's a big question. I have no idea. I have no idea. Yeah.
Okay, so what was the thing you
Okay, I
was
just had
asking
a brief
about?
thought. I just had a brief thought about Inez and like when she knew. So like I don't know when she knew, but I can say for certain that as soon as Mikkel was old enough to look like himself, like that's when she should have believed it. You know, like once he was old enough to actually look like she remembered him looking in the 80s, like I feel like that should have been the moment when it's like, okay, he wasn't lying. He really is from the future. You know, like this is him.
Well, help me remember the parentage. So basically, Ulrich and forgot the wife's name.
Katarina.
They would have had a kid that they named Mikkel,
Yeah.
and she would have been like, "Oh, my grandchild."
Yeah.
Right? No, wait, no, so sorry. She's not
She's
Ulrich's
not.
wife.
Yeah,
She's Larry's
no.
mother. How would
Yeah.
she know of baby Mickle? She's not related to them at all.
Yeah. She wouldn't know him, but just to say, like, if the future Mickle slash past Mickle tells her that's me, at a certain point, that kid will be old enough to look convincingly like him, where it's like, okay, like, it becomes like a decent.
You mean if she has a picture of Mickle from
Yeah,
the
which
80s?
she should, because that's one of my gates. I'll get back to that in a second. But yeah, for example, yeah, if she had a picture, she could compare
Okay.
it to that kid. Say, I mean, he would have looked probably reasonably like that for some period of time before he disappeared, and so I just feel like she could have known, for some time at least before he disappeared, that he really was from the future, and so on. So it's just to say, like, that's the most direct thing, that she could just look at and be like, okay, there's some, like, physical, like, this is quite, this is a weird coincidence. He's got your name. He looks just like you. He could probably tell him details about that family. Like, I feel like eventually it would be like, okay, like, I believe it. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. My brief other gate that I wanted to talk about is with the picture, because they show Mickle's picture in the high school a couple of times. Like, you see it, you see them, like, almost like the Laura Palmer thing in Twin Peaks. Like, they zoom
Yeah.
into this case and they show him in the class of whatever, and I'm like, motherfucker, that picture's been up there this whole time and no one's seen it. Like, it's like, it was so frustrating to me, because I'm just like, there's a picture of him in the hall, publicly visible, and no one's noticed. Like, he's missing, and no one's noticed his pictures on the fucking wall. That drove me crazy. And I was so happy when Charlotte found the newspaper article from the 50s with Orange in it. I was like, finally, someone finds, like, concrete evidence that there's time travel out, because I feel like there should be a lot of it.
Even, but that's one of those things. Even if somebody saw his picture, you go, well, that's clearly not Mickle. Even if it looks like him, it can't be him. What is there, time travel happening? Like, no one would think that that's actually the reason that he would be in a picture. So it's one of those.
At this point, Ulrich would believe it, but he already knows.
And it's not like well, yeah, there's a couple characters who know what's going on, but it's not like in Lost, where they had the similar thing when the Losties, were joined Dharma, right?
The Dharma thing,
and they're supposed to be like these pictures of them hanging out this whole time, right?
Yeah.
So that would be one where it's like, okay, that's Kate. I can't pretend like that she didn't time travel. But no, I get your consternation there. I was happy to see Charlotte's because as soon as they took the picture of him in the 50s, I'm like, well, here's evidence of this man time traveling. Where is this going to show up? And so she's busy sleuthing and figures it out. Well, and not only, and I do wonder exactly what she thinks that means. Does that mean, like, okay, he's sort of there now? Like, the reason he's not here is because he time traveled, and he's not only is that where he is now, but that's where he's always been, because that happened in the past. It's like this weird, like, he was always then there, there then or something. Yeah, that's the weird thing about this show is you could really, like, take half of the cast and make a compelling show with just half of the characters. Like, there's everybody is really, well, most characters are really siloed in their own storyline, which makes it interesting. Versus, what I was really captivating about Twin Peaks is the inciting incident of Laura Palmer's death is like this thing that everyone in the whole town is dealing with. So that's kind of the unifying incident. And you kind of get to understand these characters through that lens and what it means for what they're doing before and what they're going to do now, whereas, like, this show is kind of the inverse, where, like, no one cares that Eric disappeared. We don't even know it happened until like 7 minutes into the pilot.
Yeah.
So it's not like it doesn't. So it's not like this disappearance of this one kid is now, even though it's this sleepy town where nothing ever happens. This disappearance of this kid is no one is really batting an eye, and they also throw in the thing of like, well, he's run away before, so we're not going to take it too seriously. It's like okay,
right.
So it's like okay, not that big a deal. No one's really like worried about where Eric is. Like even his best friends are like, we'll just take his drugs while he's gone.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Crying, so it's completely different than like, oh my God, Laura Palmer, the star of Twin Peaks, the most interesting girl in town. Like her death is shocking everybody.
Right.
This does not happen. Not like and then of course what was she into and what was going on and who knew what and what happened to her last night and all that stuff. So it's just interesting to just compare the mechanics of the story because it's like, and then then Mads. So that's the other thing too. So then you got this whole thing where like it's okay. Not only did Eric disappear, we don't really care. Okay. So now Mikkel disappears, and now we care. Okay,
Yeah.
Although I really wish they would have introduced Mikkel before, like the scene where he disappears, because I would have cared more if I would have known.
Oh, he had like one scene before that.
He had the one scene. Sure, okay, the magician scene. No, Dad, it's win, not how. Exactly. Gotta love it. Yeah. So. They have the whole thing with Mikkel, and sorry, I started thinking about his Houdini thing and the whole magic tricks.
Yeah,
and it reminded me of the Prestige.
Yeah, I can see that.
What was I saying?
I can see that. While you're thinking, I was just gonna quickly mention that I think another crazy element is that Ulrich takes his smartphone to the 50s, and that actually ends up being used as a part of the
which I don't understand
device.
At all. I completely don't understand when he was like, "Hey, here's the device. It's already made," and he's like, "Oh, here's a smartphone. I will somehow integrate this into the design." I guess it's like, but why did you do that? Why was that? Did that need to happen? I didn't understand that at all. That was a weird one to me.
I didn't understand that either, but it just means that like the functioning of that machine was. I mean, it was a paradox already because like he compared the old one and the new one, and also like Claudia showed up and gave him the blueprint. Like, so it's like. There's like multiple levels of like he didn't build the machine.
Is it in when he's older he gets the blueprint and builds it, and then it time travels back in time to when he's younger, and then he sees it, and then that's how he knows how to build it?
So I think correct me if I'm wrong, experts. I think Claudia gives him the blueprints in the 50s. Okay. I think. And he builds a version of it, and I think he says it didn't work. And then I think the stranger visits him in the 80s with the broken down machine from the future. And he's got his like fresh one. He's like, I built this thing, but it doesn't work because I forget what he said. He said something. It was missing. And then he like used the old machine together with the smartphone that he also got in the 50s to make it function in the 80s. I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Sort of. It was weird to me because I thought in the 80s when the stranger brings the one from the future to him that doesn't work. And he's like, yeah, I'll take a look at it. And then we see he has one that looks brand new, right? Okay, yeah. And then the scene when the stranger comes back, he's talking about it. I just didn't understand. He had the smartphone all that time. So why didn't it work? Why didn't he use the smartphone with it originally when he built it?
That's a good question. I mean, maybe it wasn't in the blueprint.
Because it was, to me, I thought it was like because he had modified the smartphone.
Yeah.
That's what was weird, where he opened it out of a drawer like, oh, I already have this thing. I've already modified it. And all of a sudden, look what it does. It's like, of course, look what it does. Don't you know it does that? Isn't that why you modified it to do what it's doing right now? It was confusing that he was like, it was like he found this thing.
Yeah.
It's so there must have been a previous time when he put the smartphone next to the device and said, oh, this has a connection. Let me amplify it or something.
Yeah, but it still wasn't enough. I mean, there was also like the stranger added a thing to it too. Like he named some element or something.
That's
and,
true.
Like, put a
that's
cartridge
true.
in there, so that
I think that's the part that didn't work. I thought he said that didn't work. Well, okay, never mind. I'm making stuff up because I just remember the stranger saying, "Oh, here's a radioactive element, and that's what's going to actually do what I needed to do."
Yeah.
Because the machine by itself, it basically just increases the mass of whatever that isotope is. It seems like that's all the machine does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so I thought when he said, oh, it didn't work before, meaning he didn't have that last element, which was the radioactive part.
Yeah.
Not the smartphone part. Because he had that the whole time.
You should have had that the whole time, yeah.
Yeah, but he was like, look what it does. And I'm like, why are you surprised? Isn't this...
Maybe it's just for the audience. Yeah, that's a weird one.
I'll have to watch that scene again.
I agree.
Yeah, it was a weird one.
Oof. That's a mess. Okay, so another one of my gates was actually resolved by the show, so it's not really a gate anymore. Gate. But I just had this revelation at a certain point when we were getting these like flashbacks and we were learning about the background of the characters, right? So they show Claudia and her daughter Regina, I guess, who's the one who I know, say it right. The one who owns the hotel, like the one hotel in town or something.
The Great Northern.
Almost like a sad, lonely Ben Horn or something. Like
you can pick. I love seeing the Twin Peaks influence on this show because it's so clear in a lot of ways. It's like the pacing and the mood and the characters.
Yeah.
I mean, even her first scene when she's just like at the desk by herself, and she goes from 0 to 60 on a phone call. I mean, it's so David Lynch, like
yeah. Right. I forgot.
A Woman in Trouble.
They always cut to her at that desk. It's like so many shots like that where she's just like sitting there at the desk, like doing paperwork or something, and it's like. Oh man. Anyway, my point was that so her mom was running the power plant, right? And so we find out that their last name, family name, I guess, was Tiedemann, right? So she's Regina and Claudia and Tiedemann, right? So Tiedemann's cool. So later on, like Regina, she's married to Alexander. And it's like, oh, she's married to Alexander. Alexander Tiedemann? Yeah. Okay. What?
Okay.
Like, did she marry someone in her own family? Like, I got really confused by that. Like, why is his name Tiedemann? Like, did he take her last name? Like, are they being progressive? Like, what's going on? Like, I was really confused by that. But then, of course, they have a reveal where they show that he was some vagabond who showed up on the run, and they sort of like took him in, and so he wasn't actually related to them. He just took it's like they adopted him or something. I guess that's what happened. It's still a bit.
Is that what happened?
But I think
that's an adult. Why would they adopt him?
No.
I thought he was an adult.
No, he was a kid when he was on the run and in the forest, like he had the gun.
I thought he was like 18.
Well, okay. I mean, he was younger than he was in 2019 when he's married and stuff. Like he was significantly younger than that.
Because he just said, like, I need a job. He didn't say I need a family to adopt me.
No, right? I agree, but I'm just assuming that there's stuff happening off screen because they show him, like, falling in with that family, and he takes a job at the place, and I'm assuming he takes the last name at some point because he's using it. Mm-hmm, like, right? I mean, it's like, I don't know. I don't have a better explanation. It's true they didn't say that explicitly, but they did at least provide a path that wasn't really clear before. That's all I'm saying.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It can stay a gate if you want, because they did not actually dot the I on that and really say it out loud. But as soon as they showed, like, oh, he wasn't really part of the family, like, that is an assumed name. Even Alexander is, like, not necessarily his real name. I was like, okay, fine, like, call yourself whatever you want. Like, I'm not gonna complain. It just, for a second, I was like, did she marry someone in her own family? Like, what happened there?
Yeah.
or is it just a coincidence, Like,
yeah. There's two Smiths,
multiple Tiedemans. Like, why not?
Yeah, exactly. It's just a common last name. Yeah.
Which is not. I mean, that's definitely not impossible. But it's just sort of weird when the focus is so much on these families and the lineage and how they're connected. It's like, it would be weird. Like, yeah, he's a Tiedemann, but not actually part of the Tiedemann family. Like. So I feel like they're trying to, like, connect him with that stuff. I guess we'll see, like, where they go with that if they continue to show that period, which is, I guess, the 80s. I guess that was the 80s when all that stuff was happening. Where he shows up, right? Because it was like Ulrich and Katerina are there, the teenage versions, and they're about to go after. They're about to go after Regina, I guess, because they think she was the one who said that she raped her or something, and then Alexander shows up with the gun, and there's this whole, like, weird confrontation.
Oh man, the rape thing is crazy. I was really blown away when I was like, why am I dealing with the rape story right now? Where did this come from in the plot line of, like, wait, Ulrich, when he was a kid, was involved in a rape allegation? Okay, is this important? Because, like, in the future, it's not.
It's a good point. Yeah. No, it was weird. I mean, I think it's, like, Hannah character development, basically, like, because, they had the most recent scene with her, like, they have her, I mean, not really the most recent, but the most recent, like, plot-wise, they have her, like, go to Alexander and say, like, I need you to ruin Ulrich's life or something.
Yeah.
And he calls the cop with the eye patch. I don't understand that. That was something that was kind of baffling to me.
Also,
like
the cop with the eye patch is also a David Lynch character.
Yeah, totally.
Because he's like out of place. Like they never explain the eye patch, right?
No,
like,
they never said a word about it. It's
every scene he's in, the only thing you can think about is him wearing that eye patch. It's like a joke no one will point out, and it's like it's so specifically. It calls attention to itself in such a particular way.
Yeah.
And also, like, they don't give that. He's also the butt of all the jokes. Like every scene ends with him not getting what he wants.
Right.
And so it's like, is it because he only has one eye? Is that why he's such a hapless loser? Like, what are you saying? Like, it's such a weird, specific character trait to be like, here's this character who's like but I guess that's, the reveal or whatever, the red herring. Like, they wanted us to think he, wasn't really involved in anything important.
Right. Yeah. Good point. It's like, it's sort of misdirection. Like, you think he's Andy, but he's actually Chad.
Mm-hmm. Wait, what? Andy and Chad from what?
Twin Peaks season 3. You remember Chad, the shitty cop? It's not a memorable character.
Wow.
The corrupt cop who was, like, in with Richard Horn, and, like, they were, like, selling drugs or something. And
man.
And he tried to, like, hide the letter. It's like, It's like somebody like sent a letter and then it was like, Chad, you gotta intercept the letter for me. And like none of that shit ever mattered. Anyway, that's
was it the letter of the woman who's like, he tried to kill me?
Yeah, that's what it was.
A letter.
He wrote a letter to
he wrote a strongly worded letter about her attempted murder.
It doesn't make any sense. And like they just all they had to do is get that letter, like, and everything will be fine. Like it's like what? It, like they knew it made no sense. All right, anyway, that's Twin Peaks.
That's a different game, yeah.
No, it's got its own problems. Anyway, I was just gonna say, I feel like they're showing that her character is like kind of devious and scheming and was that way even back then. Like she's like mad that Ulrich is not with it, so she's like, it's weird because they show her seeing them, right? They show her seeing them in the room, right? And we see a setup, right? They're planning to have sex. It's very clear that it's not like they walked in that room and like suddenly it just happened. Like that was the whole intention. Everything leading up to it would lead one to believe that it was a fully consensual encounter happening there. You don't see anything to lead you to believe otherwise, right? Yeah. And then suddenly out of the blue, she tells her dad, like, I saw he raped her. That happened. And then, Ulrich gets arrested and it's a whole thing. The thing that really threw me in that episode that they did eventually address, and this would have been a gate if they hadn't addressed it, even though it's still weird, is like at the end of that episode, they start doing this montage where they cut, they do like a split screen of the past version and the future version, basically, of those characters. And when they get to Katarina, the past version of her has a black eye. And I'm like, what the fuck? She's got a black eye. Like, why does she have a black eye? Like, I was so ready to be convinced that, that the rape thing didn't matter or didn't happen. And, Hannah just made it up and, that's it. But then like, they just show her with a black eye and I'm like, what the?
Well, yeah, she even in the interrogation scene, she was clearly beat up and had a black eye. Yeah. And he said, she's what happened? And she's like, I fell. And so
which sounds like a lie.
It almost seems to me like it's both things at once. Like he did actually assault her, but like, which would mean she's telling the truth, or she didn't see the whole thing. So what she saw, she didn't actually see an assault. So she thinks she's lying, but it actually did happen.
Right. I mean, that's what I thought. But then, like, they're married in the future, and eventually, in the later stuff, like we see the kid, Ulrich gets released in it.
Oh, is that what she said?
And yeah, it's in that, it's around that scene where they meet. It was actually Regina again, the scheming. And so they're going to go after her, and it's somewhere around that scene where she says, like, or I think maybe it's Alexander who even asked how she got the black eye, and she says that her mom did. So right. Like the way she was acting, Katarina, in that episode, and even the present day Katarina too, like she's like kind of tough-ish, like she's like kind of rough physically, I guess. And so anyway, I had the impression that maybe they were just telling us like she grew up in kind of a abusive household or something, and like so her like she supposedly got raped and then her mom hit her in the face. Like that's crazy, but I feel like that's what happened. Like the rape didn't happen, but her mom hit her because she was lying. She thought she was lying about it or something. I think that's what we're supposed to think. At least that's my current opinion.
Okay. No, you're right. I forgot about that part with the mom. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, then that just means that who was it? Hannah was just lying.
Yeah, that she was just lying, which is what I thought from the beginning. But like when they showed the black eye, it was like, well, that's weird. And then they didn't address it for multiple episodes. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, what was the deal with that eye? And then you get that police scene and she's like, I fell. And it's like, oh, come on. That can't be it. And anyway, when they finally got to the second answer, I was like, okay, I'm ready to believe that. Like, you don't have a particular reason to lie in this scene, unlike the other scene.
Yeah.
So, because like you tell, like, my mom hit me, it's like that could cause some issues. So, I think that's what happened. She certainly wasn't like, or she totally raped me.
Or don't you remember you did this to me? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the past versions were hanging out afterwards too. So it's just, I don't know. All the clues suggest to me that it didn't actually happen, but the way they played it was just very strange. And I don't know. I came to believe that the only reason that they gave her a black eye was so the cops wouldn't believe her, because the first thing I thought when Hannah told the lie was like, well, Katarina's just going to be like, no, that's not what happened. And then they're going to be like, okay, like, wouldn't they believe her over some rando, like the one who it actually happened to? But then when she has the black eye, it makes it look like maybe she's covering it up, and she even lies about it, so it's like, it looks suspicious. So anyway, I feel like that's why they did that. It's a weird storyline, and the you gotta ruin Ulrich thing is unresolved as of the end of the season, and he's in the 50s anyway, so I have no idea where that's going. That's a weird thing. There's a lot of dangling threads, and that's definitely one of them. That whole saga of like she's like got this like crush / vendetta that she's been obsessed about since childhood. I don't know. It's crazy.
What
and
else
yet she's
the one who marries
Mickle, so
you can't throw stones. You married Mickle.
Exactly. Exactly. You married a time traveling.
Yeah. Yeah. Your husband was a time traveler. Yeah, that's all. I was gonna say the other thing that's a dangling thread is the whole thing with the. Did we forget what the whole thing with the red necklace? The penny and the red thread.
Totally. I do not understand that at all. Did they explain that and I missed it? Is that going to be my polar bear thing? Like, should I not be asking anymore? Because they showed it a lot of times.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't get it. The candy bar thing, too. The candy bar thing was a little motif that I think it's just incidental, but like they showed it multiple times and it seemed like it was significant.
Because that's supposed to specifically be the 80s candy bar. And,
it's the 80s candy bar. That was the point.
Yeah, which I only got from reading a synopsis that's like a...
synopsis told you. Okay, good, because I'm like, I didn't get that at all. Okay.
Yeah. So I think what we're supposed to believe is in the pilot, when Ulrich goes to see his mom, and she says, I saw him again in the woods, the man with the big head, that basically she saw either the stranger or, she saw one of the two hooded men, who she's seen before. Right. And she also shows him the candy bar, which is from the 80s. So seeming to suggest that, like, Mad's, something with Mad's body happened here. So maybe that the night that, well, now I don't know how that would have worked. Let me see. Why would? Oh, that was the night. No, Mickle hadn't disappeared yet. So Eric had disappeared
because that was still the first episode. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know why the rapper would have been there. I was thinking, Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's what I was reading the synopsis that I saw that the rapper is from the 80s and it came from like Mads had it on him when he got kidnapped or something.
Is that like a German thing? Like they would know that? Is that a real thing?
Yeah, I assume you should be able to tell. Like maybe like that's the old fashioned rapper and the new version looks different.
Yeah. Like since I don't recognize it at all, like it didn't register that it was old or anything in particular. It's just it seemed like they kept cutting to it. So like having people find it, and they did eventually show a commercial, and yeah, that's interesting. I think that makes sense.
So it was called. So Raider is the name of a chocolate bar distributed by Mars.
Okay.
In Northern Europe, it was introduced in West Germany and Austria in 1976 and sold under that name until 1991 when it was renamed. Can you guess, Justin, what it was renamed to?
Twix?
Yes.
Because that's what it looks like.
Yeah, it was renamed to Twix.
Like, is that just a German Twix? Wait,
Yeah.
is that the original Twix, or they were like bought, like, or they just...
No, Twix already existed. They were just sold as Raider.
Oh, okay. It was the same candy, but it just was sold under a different name.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes sense because, yeah, it just looks like it. When they showed it, it was like, yeah, that's just Twix, right? Okay, so that really dates it then.
Like, yeah, so anybody would have saw that and said, oh, that's a time-traveling candy bar.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, they're signaling that, and that's just something I wasn't able to appreciate. Okay. All right. You know what? The wrapper is fine. I get it.
The decision to rename Raider to Twix in 1991 was accompanied by a massive and memorable national advertising campaign featuring the slogan, well, it's in German, so I won't read that. But it's translated as, Raider is now Twix, nothing else has changed. So, I think the German audience would really have understood this Raider reference.
New name, same great taste. Like, yeah. Okay. Sounds good. But yeah, the necklace thing with the coin and all that, like, yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. What significance that has, why. Just why. Yeah, no, that's a weird one. That's a really weird one.
So I thought we had a little bit of a answer because we saw Mads wearing it, right? One of the boys we see wearing it.
Wait, did we see Mads, or was it? Because I don't think we ever saw him alive, did we? Are you talking about
not alive, but like on his body?
Oh, it was just on his body. Okay. Yeah. That sounds right.
Oh, and did we see young Heigl with it? Or am I making that up?
See who?
Young Heigl?
Heigl? Oh, you mean Helga?
Helga.
Okay. Sorry. I was like, am I forgetting somebody? Yeah. That's what I was wondering. Is that what we saw? That sort of feels right, but I'm not 100%.
Who knows what we saw? Please email us if you know what we saw, because
like you watch it. I mean, I'm definitely like way better at it than I was after the pilot, but keeping things straight. But there's a lot of details and I've only seen it once, so yeah, I think I don't remember, but I do. I remember we saw it again, and it was like, oh, it's the mysterious necklace. That seems significant.
That's exactly what I remember, but I don't remember. I thought what we saw was. We saw it on one of the young boys in a different time period, and it was like, oh, this is where it came from. Like, either Mads when he came out of the wormhole in front of Peter, either it was then or it was when Helga went to the 80s. Like when he and Peter were doing the ET touch, when they were on either side of the wormhole. Right. It's one of those two scenes I thought I saw, and I was like, oh, okay, here's the first instance of this, and this is why it becomes a thing later, because it starts here. That's what I remember thinking, but...
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. The tough thing about this situation that I'm in right now is that because there's 2 more seasons of the show, I have to be a little careful looking up things from the show because like there's definitely spoilers out there for the later seasons. So it's like I want to look up like just what was known, before, So it's like I can only read the recaps that are just based on each episode, to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I feel like something like the necklace, like if I actually look it up,
okay, sorry. I just jumped to it. I just jumped to the scene. So yeah, so Heigl is in the bunker after he wakes up from being attacked. And Peter is this is the end of towards the end of the 10th episode. And yeah, Heigl's in the corner crying, and he's got the necklace with the penny on his hand. So it comes from him.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so I'm assuming that, he still has it when he goes to the 80s.
So that has some significance for his character, I guess. So maybe that's why we're seeing it. He associates it with something. I mean, there's also this like Saeed Ben thing with that character where it's like he's just a kid, right? Like he hasn't done nothing yet, right? And then this man shows up and tries to murder him, And it's like for something that he's going to do in the future. And it's like, did that, and then locks him in the basement. Like, did that set, I mean, it literally did because of some specific events that transpire afterwards. But, like even just psychologically, like did Ulrich actually contribute to him like becoming the person who, takes meds and the other kids and experiments on them, and so, like it's just
if
weird.
He wouldn't have tried to kill him, he might not have been that person. But
exactly.
But it's already done. So
it's already
done. He's already attacked him,
right?
So he can't not attack him.
I really didn't think he would, but the scar was a clue. Like the scar should have told me that it was going to happen. But like when he raised his hand, like there's a little hesitation. He looks at the kid, and I'm like, "There's no way you're going to do it." I was really surprised. Like, what? Really? You just don't usually see like grown.
It was very clear to him that he could save all these kids very easily by this one action. So yeah, it was surprising, but
he's really like he does the same thing too. Like I changed it. Everybody's fine. Wait, the kids are dead? That doesn't make sense. I fixed it.
Yeah, he unfortunately didn't make sure the job was really done, but it's really because like he couldn't.
Right. Because he didn't. Because that's not what happened. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's the thing. It's like. I'm really wondering about those.
Yeah, it's like the answer is like you have free will, but you only have as much free will as you've already used.
Right. You have free will, but it's already.
But you already done it already. Yeah,
you already did it.
You don't get to use it now. You already used it.
Right. And even if you think you're using it now, you're just going to be using it the way you already did. So
so good luck with that.
Yeah. I wonder how far they're going to take that. Like, are they committed to everything that happened, always happened? And like, so like in a way that limits like what they can show in the future. It's like they can build on things, but they can't, they can't have people like preventing things or whatever, I think, it's like if a thing happened and you're in the future, it's like, well, whatever time travel you're going to do, like to stop that thing, like isn't going to work. You can go do other stuff, but the consequences of that are already here. So, it's like, I don't know.
That's what I thought.
Like you could almost argue your way into never time traveling for that reason.
But you can't because you did.
Oh, you did though, so you can't. Yeah, of course.
It's great. The time travel stuff is bonkers. But yeah, it's nice that they. This was I was going to say. The idea of if they're going to go further in the future. Or like, how did you phrase it? Oh yeah, will they be able to have people preventing things from happening in the past?
Yeah. Yeah.
I do wonder if, because it's such a sci-fi show, that someone won't just invent a machine that can do the impossible.
Mm-hmm.
If you have two, isotopic compounds or whatever, radioactive elements, you can undo a thing you've done before,
Right.
So I wonder, yeah, if they're gonna, change, add to the mythology, like with just sci-fi rules about, because they even did a thing where they're like, oh, what happens when you go through a black hole? Well, and you come out of the other side, which is the white hole, and it's like, okay, now they're talking about white holes. Is that going to be a thing that somebody does or finds or uses, or does it matter? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's valid questions. All
Mm-hmm.
I agree. That's it feels like it's the kind of show where that could happen. I will also say, in a way, the ending sort of reminded me of Dollhouse too, like cutting to
Mm-hmm.
this like quasi like apocalyptic future, dystopian future that's like somehow like a direct consequence of the
Mm-hmm.
crazy stuff that's happening, in the quote unquote present of the show that we've been watching so far, like
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting move. I think that does like reframe the show in a way because, I feel like before that it wasn't clear. It's like everyone's like jumping around in time and like doing stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like, but the world around them, is like going on more or less. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, it's not clear what it means in the larger sense, I guess, that, that everyone's like time traveling and doing crazy stuff in this town. So anyway, I think it was, if you're gonna go for something at the end of the season, like it was interesting. Another thing I wanted to say about that last episode that kind of struck me is like I thought those scenes where they showed like the black hole opening up, this like weird
Mm-hmm.
effect that they use, like it really did make me think like because it looks strange, and I feel like that's one place where they really distinguish themselves from Lost. Because Lost, I feel like would never show something like that.
Dude, when they cut to the little wrinkle in time where Mads fell out, I was like, yeah, Lost would never cut to the special effect shot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They had, they would like show some things, they would show the smoke monster and stuff, but like there was, the transformation they would never show, for
Mm-hmm.
example. Like they had these lines they wouldn't cross. And I feel like, like the way it worked before that is like they would just walk through a door in a cave, so it was very, I don't know, like you didn't see anything
That was the
crazy
Lost
happening on
version.
screen.
That's
Yeah,
that's the Lost
exactly.
version.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I got used to it. And so it was actually really jarring when like suddenly we're seeing these like crazy special
The
effect
Donnie
black
Darko
holes
version.
opening up. The Donnie Darko version. Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like they switched the way I thought they were like portraying things. It's like yeah, I don't know. It was just an interesting shift to me for that last
It is a
episode.
weird shift because it's like they have both things. It's Lost so Lost had the fantasy track of the island, which is what it really is, which is science can't really tell you what's happening here, right? But
Right,
then they
right.
then they tried to bring in the scientists to prove that point, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, there's no sci-fi answers here for you guys, but this show is like, hey, we have the fantasy answer of underneath this cave, there's some doors, some people some mysterious people built at using what seems like a natural phenomena and built a time machine,
I guess it's kind of like the
basically.
donkey wheel in a way, like that whole.
Exactly, where yeah, it's like the practical version. But then they
Yeah,
also say now actually have some science behind this stuff too. And there's actually science going on. Here's actually a machine that can influence this thing here. So yeah, it's like they're doing both versions.
right, right, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, more or less.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like, when they get to the future, that there's some sort of it looks like a nuclear fallout, or I can't tell if it's
Yeah,
supposed
they
to be
had like
regular war craziness, or is this really like, because nobody's like in hazmat suits,
right.
so it's not
But
like
they do
there's like
have those warning signs up. But yeah,
yeah, it seems like the warning was like old, right? Like
yeah, it could have been old
whatever
at that
whatever
point.
happened
Yeah,
happened a while ago.
yeah.
But
It's 33 years, so it's a
so
lot of
yeah,
time.
I wonder if we're supposed to think something happened with the power plant in that time,
It
or
does
is
seem
it?
like that should be part of the story, at least.
Yeah,
If
because
there's
it's
like
supposed to
fallout.
be. It's supposed to be like, they kept saying, "Oh, this is this power plant had the longest safety record in
Right,
any
right.
of them, and all that kind of stuff."
I do feel
And
like the
we do
power plant's a
know.
little bit of a red herring, though. Anyway, go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
but we do know that there's all that toxic waste under the power plant. They kept
Right.
talking about that.
Yeah.
And we know that the stranger, set off a machine basically connected to it.
Right.
So it would stand to reason if something happened where he,
Yeah.
caught in trying to destroy the black hole, he ends up creating it, which makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then somehow that destabilizes the power plant or something, and then leads to this dystopian future,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that could
Because
make
then what'll
sense.
happen is, oh, I got to go back and fix it, right? What
Right.
happens is like,
Right.
oh, we have to undo this somehow, or
Yeah.
um, yeah. Some of the scenes, the show is very talky, a lot of exposition sometimes. So there'll be
Mm-hmm.
whole scenes when like characters are just like expositorying everything,
Mm-hmm.
and um, it's a little jarring because then it's like, well, I don't know how much of this is really important if you're just going to sit here and just tell me everything,
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they just sound like they're just like pontificating, and
Yeah.
it's like I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, is this any of this important? And then it was weird because it was
Yeah.
like the scientist guy, the inventor guy, is talking a lot, but he doesn't know anything. And then the
The
stranger,
watchmaker. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
the stranger is like
Yeah.
knows everything, but isn't talking a lot. Um,
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
he just sits there and listens. It's like, why are you listening to the guy who doesn't know what's going on here?
Right. Right. Yeah. That doesn't
But it's
really
like, you
make
wrote this
sense.
book, and didn't he only write the book because he knew he would write the book or
Yeah, because
something like
someone gave
that?
me the book and so I copied it. Yeah, he saw the book before he wrote it, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, that's. I mean,
yeah.
that's the compass right there.
Uh-huh.
Like
They have a lot of
no
those,
one wrote it.
and that's what I'm wondering is like, because there's this actual closed loop time loop thing happening. I do wonder if there's going to be a plot about people trying to get out of that. Like maybe that's kind of the goal or something.
Yeah. It does seem like they're
Like
gonna have to go to some thing that isn't just let's this character mucks about and that character mucks about
mhm,
and like
mhm,
that's it.
yeah.
Like which because they have to ease their way in, but I do think at some point it has to like come together and yeah, I mean that would make sense, right? Like how do you solve all these problems, right? I mean, you can't go back and fix them. Certainly not with like fix the universe stuff, right? Because that's done. Like
Mhm.
you can't. Whatever you do is already taken into account.
Well, that's what's
So
weird too, right? Because you got the stranger going to do stuff who I would imagine would know these rules, but then you got
you would
Claudia
think
doing
so.
stuff, and
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
first of all, are they working together? Do they even know about each other's actions? And if so,
I
it seems like,
think so, but yeah, I'm not sure.
hmm
It seems like they should be, but I don't. I mean, I don't think they've had a specific scene where they said they were working together. So I don't
hmm
really know. For sure. It's possible they're independent, I guess. I mean, I guess the main thing that makes me think that um, what is the main thing that makes you think that? No, I guess there isn't really a specific reason. It just feels like it should be related. Just because, like, the stranger, obviously, he is Jonas in the future, and because Jonas ends up waking up in the bunker with like Claudia's stuff in it, it makes it seem like they're in cahoots, but that doesn't necessarily mean that. So I don't know.
Well, it seems like they'll meet there, and then you're just saying they have some. He grows up in that time, but she can't stay there that long because she's already 100. So she's not 100. She's not going to be living too much longer, right? I guess depending on how the time traveling works.
Yeah,
but they can't spend too much time together in that future timeline.
Right. Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I mean, she can time travel.
But she can tell him like, hey, and one day you'll need to do XYZ or something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then she'll die in that timeline. Well, no, she'll have to leave to time travel at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of questions still left to be answered. I do wonder what they're going to focus on next season. Because we still don't really know what the main problem is, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
On Lost, we know in the pilot, the problem is we're stranded on an island,
right?
And it's dangerous and mysterious, right?
Yeah.
So that's very clear from the pilot, and I feel like from this whole first season, I don't even know for Dark, like what's the problem? They don't even know what the problem is, right?
They have no idea what the problem is.
They don't know who Noah. Most of them don't know who Noah is. They don't know who the main antagonist is. Yeah. They don't know what the central issue is. So they're not even close to being able to they don't even know they're lost, right? They don't even know that they're that they have a problem. Yeah. Some of them are just now some of them are just now finding out by the end of the first season.
Exactly. For the first time. Yeah. After a whole season of ridiculousness. Yeah.
And that's what that gets a little complex too with time travel stories when it becomes about if whatever happened, if all what the action is people mucking about through time, then it's like, well, do I go and undo all of this, or does it even matter? Because it already happened, and so I can't undo it. So it's like, what's going to be the fix here? Is it killing Noah?
Mm-hmm.
Is it undoing people's deaths? Is it you know what I mean? Like, what's the goal for any of these storylines?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I feel like they're gonna have to turn a corner with that time travel limitation stuff to make the story work, because otherwise they're just kind of stuck with the past is what it is, and we can go see it some more, but it's not gonna fundamentally change stuff that happens later, because this already happened. So yeah, I feel like it's a limiting thing. It's good if you want to show flashbacks and show time travel, but not mess up what you've already done in the story. So it's great for that, but I feel like they're not really in that territory. I mean, this is a fundamentally time travel based show, so I feel like they don't, it's not like they've had many seasons of stuff in 2019 that now they have to make sure they don't ruin with time travel stories. So yeah, I feel like something like that's coming. The other thing I wanted to say, just I was touching on it, but just to sort of put a period on it, about the nuclear power plant is early on, it really seemed like they were insinuating the nuclear power plant was involved somehow with the disappearance of the kids, with what was going on in the caves. They were covering something up. It's almost a lost thing of well, they were covering up they were hiding some nuclear waste in the caves.
Yeah.
But like they weren't, but they didn't really. I mean, they had nothing to do with the kids.
So can I ask the whole thing with that when Alexander tells, I think is it Boris or something or Jorgen? I think is
Jurgen. You're talking about Jurgen?
Jurgen. Yeah, sorry, Jurgen.
Yeah, come on, Jurgen.
Yeah. When he's like, go deal with the stuff tonight.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to believe that one man moved all those barrels of radiation to another location? What actually did he do that night? What are we supposed to think that was in reference to him? What do we think he actually did?
Yeah, didn't they get put in a truck? Isn't that what happened?
They got put. So one man in one night moved 5 million barrels of radioactive waste.
Maybe he had a crew.
They could have done that. They could have done that any time, and they just decided not to. For all these years, they could have just moved it.
Well, I think they're just putting it in a truck temporarily until the heat's off, and then they're just going to move it. Yeah, and then they're going to move it back in the caves. I feel like it's just a temporary measure. Like
they should have just thrown some blankets over it, and then just said like, "Oh, pay no attention to the nuclear waste under these blankets." It doesn't feel very realistic, that part of the storyline, but
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, maybe he had a crew. I agree. One person, he shouldn't have been able. You have to even like spelunk to get down into that.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
It's like,
what did he actually? Yeah. He's like, I need you to do it tonight. It's like, really? What is he gonna do in one night? That's gonna like take care of this problem. First of all, nobody even wanted to go. The police weren't asking to go spelunking around the property.
They really weren't. It's true. Yeah. It seems overly cautious. It's weird. It's weird. But anyway, I feel like in a way they're almost like Dharma, in that like they, they're like close to the crazy stuff that's happening, and like, they've had like a thing or two related to it that they've experienced, but like they don't really have a clue.
Who are you talking about?
The power plant and like the people associated with it. Obviously Claudia does later, but I think we still don't know, like, I mean, the dog was obviously a big moment. But like a dog isn't, traveling around in time with like elaborate plans and passing them out to people, and like I think we still haven't seen like how she actually gets to that point. And I guess that's the closest thing to like the power plant like being important, but it really seems to me like I don't think Alexander knows that stuff, I guess is what I'm saying.
The black hole stuff?
Yeah. I mean, and all of the time travel and all this like other, Noah and all this other stuff going on.
It doesn't seem like it, yeah.
Yeah. There's no indication that he does. I mean, they could always say any number of things later, but yeah, it seems like he's just dealing with the power plant like in a normal way.
The fact that he came out of nowhere as a character, you know what I mean? Like he just appears in the 80s with no background, with fake ID, makes me wonder if he's like from the future or something.
He could be time traveling. That's definitely a very, very. And of course, if he's time traveling, then he would know stuff.
Yeah. And I do wonder, if.
Yeah, no, it's a valid point. See, I thought it was just a contrivance to explain last name gate, but you have a point that it's a show where like characters definitely time travel. There's multiple examples of that they've shown. It could even be a character we know. I mean, there's any number of possibilities. A character from the past or something. I mean, there's so many ways they could go with that. It's hard to even know where to start. But yeah. You're right. The way he appears is very mysterious and very vague. So,
and is it Hannah that found his IDs?
Oh, yeah. Is that right? Yeah, Hannah. Right. She found the ideas as a kid and held on to them for 33 years to blackmail him later.
Yeah, she's an awful
Such a
character.
schemer. Such
Yeah,
a schemer.
she's
Oh
something.
my God. Oh my God. Yeah. If you keep adding it up, it's like, Jesus
No,
Christ.
she's literally the worst because she's the one who's done all the really bad personal things, like the vindictive.
Yeah.
Nobody else is really like that. I mean, Noah obviously is a bad guy, but
Right.
like, and then Heigl is stealing people. But I can have you. But you know what I mean? Like in terms of just like the personal
But
stuff,
they
she's
have a
like,
goal that, like, their goal might be wrong, but their goal is not my personal grudge.
Yeah.
Basically, which it seems like Hannah's whole thing is like, my personal grudges come before everything.
So she can prove that he's not who he says he is. But yeah, I'm assuming he's from the future because I think if he was from the past, he'd have a harder time living a life in the future. You know, and I just think the way he appears, he seemed a little bit ready for things.
Yeah. I'll buy that.
Yeah. So, but I'm curious. You know, why would he escape to the past? What is it?
Oh yeah, right. He had like welding. Well, I guess they could have done welding in the 50s. Anyway, sorry. Go.
They welded a few things in the 50s, I'm sure.
I was trying to think through the logic there. I thought, well, they didn't have welding back in the day. I mean, I guess if you go back far enough, they didn't have it, but that's the general idea of heating metal is pretty old. Anyway.
Yeah, it goes back probably to something called the Bronze Age.
Yeah. Maybe he's from the Bronze Age.
Maybe he's from the Bronze. Hey, if it's divisible by 33, you can get there through the black hole. So we're supposed to believe that the only reason there's a black hole underneath the mountain, in the cave, is because the stranger turned on that machine.
Yeah.
There. So if he would have turned the machine somewhere else, it would have appeared somewhere else.
I mean, that's the impression I have, yeah.
And
yeah, it's like, I guess that's another consequence of that. Like, there's nothing magical. Like, what that would mean is there's nothing special about the cave.
Yeah.
Like, it's just that that's where he went because it was already the cave because he already did it.
Mm-hmm.
So he knew he should go to the cave because that's where the time travel was happening because he already made the thing that made the time travel happen in the cave. Like, basically, like, the cave is just an accident. Like, it's like a time travel paradox accident, but it didn't have to be the cave. It could have just done it in the forest or any other place, basically. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know for sure. I'm still curious about the Latin doors. Like, if the Latin doors are real, although I guess that could go back to your theory of like, well, if you could just keep going back forever, then the time machine's there forever, and maybe the Romans really built the door. I don't know.
Or it's one of those things where when he turns the machine on and it creates the black hole exists. You know. I'm assuming that's what, you know, initiates this connection of 33-year intervals between that space and time there. So it just goes all the way back to the Roman days. And some Romans were in the cave and they found it. Yeah. And they built doors. Or I don't know why the tunnels are so small, the Jeffries tubes. I don't know why why the doors are even so small. Maybe like, if the doors are bigger, you'd be able to open them because there's that wind, right? There's something to do with the size. Maybe that has to do with the force of the wind and the suction and the pressure or whatever's happening in there.
Yeah. Sure.
But it is weird that it's just like... Because if all the doors are closed, like if you're in the tunnel system, you know, and there's like 3 tunnels, right? If all the doors are closed, why is there a draft? Oh, there's only sorry. Maybe I'm thinking there's only a draft when the door is open. I think maybe okay. Yeah. So something's getting sucked out.
Yeah. There's some movement of air that happens because of the something.
Okay, because the doors are open. Black hole. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
say that.
I am interested to see the next season. I think I'm happy that the show has 3 seasons and that they ended it, and hopefully it ends with a specific planned ending.
Yeah, I think it did. I think it did. So, we don't have to like it, but I do think they had the ability to end the show in a like planned and, fully realized way. So,
Okay. That's good.
yeah, so I think this will come to it. And it's only 2 more seasons. This is like way shorter than Lost, for example.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm really bad about this. I've listened to a lot of our podcasts, and like I always do this thing where we talk about a thing for like an hour, 2 hours, however long, and at the end I'm like, yeah, I recommend it. And it's like, why would you recommend it at the end? Like, who would listen to the end of this podcast and then be like, oh yeah, I should watch the show? I did that so many times.
Yeah, that's what I was
so
trying to get
bad.
our general thoughts out at the beginning. Like, do we like it? Do we not? And then you
I
go
said
into
that at the end
details.
of the season 3 finale podcast. I'm like, yeah, if anyone dropped out after season 2, you should watch season 3. It really went
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in the end. It's like, who would ever hear that? Who's going to
Mm-hmm.
listen to 13 hours of a podcast about a show they haven't seen that season?
Yeah, just to be like waiting on with bated breath to see if you recommend it or not.
No, but do you recommend it? Anyway, I feel myself compelled to do it again. So that's why I had to say that. I know this is ridiculous, but I'm just going to say it in case there's any of you out there who just listen to this because you want to hear us talk about something and you have no idea what we're talking about. I'm going to say, for those of you who are into Lost, which I think is pretty much all of you, and other similar shows that we've mentioned. I think shows like this don't come along that often. It's really a unique type of thing, and I don't love everything about the show, but I think it is really interesting, and it really pulled me in. And I think any of you who are on the fence about it should check it out. All right, that's my end of the podcast recommendation.
You can just edit that out and paste it in the beginning.
Yeah, maybe
Kind of
I
weird.
should.
Yeah, just put it in a weird spot where it stands out.
Yeah. That sounds good. It'll be so awkward, and they'll love it. Yeah, maybe they'll do that. Work the editing magic.
By the way, Justin recommends this.
I just feel the need to tell people who have, because like I heard about this show years ago, and I was very hesitant to watch it for a variety of reasons. And even to like get through, I don't know, like anyway, like if I knew the whole time that it was this kind of show, I would have been into it. Like we also watched a few episodes of this show called Manifest, which
Never heard of it.
I recently saw Stephen King tweeting that, ooh, Manifest got another season on Netflix. I'm like, you like that show? What is wrong with you?
It's not a Stephen King show, right?
No,
He's
it's
not
definitely
involved
not
in
a
it,
Stephen
right?
King show. No, to my knowledge, he's not involved in it. I think he's a fan. That's the only reason he mentioned it.
Oh, Stephen King wants to save Manifest from cancellation. He joined the Save Manifest movement.
Is that really true?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you have it. Like Manifest is also a show in this vein, but it's terrible. It's so bad. It's hard to even explain how bad it is. And I think like whatever the faults of this show are, like it does like do the fundamental thing that I want a show like this to do.
Yeah, be interesting.
Be interesting. Yeah, exactly.
Well, what's interesting, Manifest also has a bunch of different characters who are united by the same central incident, who don't understand the significance of it.
Yeah.
And they also have their characters in their own storylines, but none of them are in storylines that have anything to do with the actual incident.
Right.
They're just their own stories.
Yeah.
So that's where it becomes, really different than Dark.
Independent of everything. I mean, it's also that like the story, even the mystery stuff, isn't that interesting.
But. Yeah, and then you have a couple characters who have fantasy things happening. They're having visions or hearing voices.
Right, the Wet Foot Angel and all that stuff.
The Wet Foot Angel. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, sorry for the spoiler. I hope that doesn't ruin it for you.
Anyway, I'm curious.
Don't
Yeah,
watch it. Don't watch it. It's not good. It's really not good.
yeah.
If you want to
Well,
laugh,
Stephen
watch
King
the
likes
first
it.
scene of the pilot. I know. I can't believe Stephen King likes it. I saw that and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, don't you know what good storytelling? Like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's baffling to me. I did see a couple people in the comments or the replies saying that like it gets better in season 3. Like, okay,
Ooh,
maybe.
that's a long time to
But it's
wait.
like, yeah, like sitting through
What is
all
this? Star
that.
Trek?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a lot to ask. And I feel like Dark like found its footing like quicker than that. Where
Mm-hmm.
like I was pretty pulled in by the first like 5 or so. And by, the second half of the season, I was like, yeah, I want to watch this. Like, come on, let's get in there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I need answers to my gates. I want to know what's happening in the cave. I need to know who's doing what and why and who these people are and what's happening. So yeah, on that level, I think the I like the characters, but I think for a couple of reasons, like the character stuff isn't as good as Lost because like first of all, like they can't do the kind of character centric episodes that Lost would do, where they would just like focus on one character and cut
Mm-hmm.
with flashbacks. Like they have more characters. That's part of the problem. They also have the characters like in specific time periods. So they can't cut to, for example, a flashback of Ulrich from 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like that's not up for grabs in the show. So I think that limits like some of the stuff. They can't do some of the stuff that Lost did in that way, basically, to develop the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that's and just the number and then the generations adding to the number basically like I think it means all the characters just don't get as much time on screen, and so you just don't have that rich sort of stuff that Lost had with the individual characters. But just I mean, with that aside, like I do enjoy the characters for the most part. Like they're most of them like have a thing and a thing that like makes them interesting or at least like notable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think even on a character level, I mean, even if it's not Lost, it's significantly better than Manifest in that way. Like I actually
Yeah,
care,
the way
basically.
for me, the way I would put what you just said is, or the way it comes off to me is more like, um, Lost had interesting characters in an interesting situation.
Mm-hmm.
Dark has non-interesting characters in an interesting situation that makes them interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And Manifest has non-interesting characters in a non-interesting
Right,
situation.
right, right.
That's kind of how I see it, because I
Yeah,
think the way the Lost characters are drawn, even if they never crashed on the island, they are still interesting characters. Like the engine of the characters themselves are interesting, right? Like
mm-hmm.
what John Locke's character is, even before he gets on the plane, is interesting, right? Nothing
Right.
you know what I mean? Just by virtue of his backstory and his character type, right? And I
Yeah.
think like with Dark, it's more that these characters are less like interesting in themselves, but they're just in a very compelling, interesting situation, and
Mm-hmm.
we want to see how they react and what they can figure out and what happens. They're our vehicle through, uncovering like the mysteries and what's happening. But without this interesting event happening, they're not interesting by themselves. That's kind of how it comes across to me. But,
Right.
the more
Yeah.
you watch, the more their drama and their conflicts become compelling because you've watched enough of the characters to see where they've come from
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So definitely, I think obviously by like a season 2 or season 3, you're gonna be pretty into the characters, even though they're because of just how much screen time you spend with
Yeah.
them and
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Spending the time. Yeah.
Yeah,
That makes a big
but it really
difference.
shows that Lost had so many super elements that
Yeah.
rolled into the fabric of the show.
Yeah.
Because it's not just, I mean, the island was what happens if a bunch of uninteresting people land on a mysterious island. Like that's what you get with that,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, there's a whole other thing to
Definitely.
making characters inherently interesting, and yeah, it's interesting to kind of see how that plays out. But I also would agree to recommend the show at the end of the
Oh,
podcast.
good.
Yeah, I think if you like mysteries and you like time travel,
Yeah.
and you
Sci-fi
like dark
mystery stuff.
dark
Yeah.
thrillers, dark
Yeah.
brooding stories.
Oh yeah, I really like the music. Like the atmosphere is very nice. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said something like they maintain that tone like very consistently.
That's
And
one of my nitpicks. A little bit is that the tone is too overwhelming sometimes for me.
hmm
Like, I feel like David Lynch knows that weird, pensive. Uh, you don't know what's going to happen at any second. Like that tone that happens a lot in his stuff. You have to break that sometimes so
hmm
that it actually, so that one, the audience can breathe, and then to like go back to normal, and then you go back into it. Versus like Dark, like never really let up on that tone, and it got overwhelming to me. I got annoyed that every scene was played with the same tone and the
Yeah.
same level of this is the craziest thing that's ever happened to anybody. Like every single character is living that in every single scene. You know what I mean? And everybody's in this like introspective, dark, like, my life is
Yeah.
falling apart, slowly moved. Like every
Yeah.
single character who you cut to, so it becomes oppressive in a way. And I feel like that's it's nice, and they do the mood very well, but I got a little bored of it. And I was like, I would love to have a break. And honestly, the break you get, I think, is when they go to the 50s, the 2050s.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That at least felt different. That little of what we got from there,
hmm
because now the conflict of the world is externalized in this apocalypse, and it's not people
Right.
just like brooding at home, right? It's like now they're there. It seems like it necessitates more action. So I'm already hoping like a little bit of that slow mystery tone that they had through season one. Like I'll be curious to see if they still kind of keep that. If it's not going
hmm
to be about centered around like the disappearance of these kids.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, I get it. It is like, yeah, it is monotone in a way, and yeah, I can see that being draining or something. I guess I kind of like the relentlessness of it, the commitment to like this is just like how the show is, and maybe you're not in the mood for that all the time, but it's like I don't know, it has a personality, and I guess I appreciate that. I like the title sequence too. I feel like I should mention that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's well done, and I like the music there and the music they use in the show, which actually reminds me a little bit of Tenet. Like I don't know if that's a thing, like where they go like, like this like weird sound that like comes in. I don't really know how to describe that, but there was something like that in Tenet too, where it's just like, it's just like characters talking quietly, in a room or something, and then
Mm-hmm.
like the soundtrack's just like,
Yeah,
something like
that's what
that.
I mean. The tone of the show reminded me of a movie where you can, yeah, and actually Nolan does that tone as well, where there's this anticipation or something, and you can do that in a movie because it's short. You can have that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you in rapt attention for 2 hours or 2.5 hours. But yeah, when you have a TV show and it's every episode is played like that, where you're like, okay, here we go. Any minute now, we're gonna get because you're waiting for the tension to be released. you know,
Yeah.
and they don't release the tension the entire season.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, and so sure, I think it's an interesting way to, you know, to do it. And then I also just think, you know, it could just be a cultural thing, you know.
Right.
But it did
Yeah.
feel like it makes sense with the characters, right? It makes sense
Mm-hmm.
why the tone would be like that. But just comparing it to something like Twin Peaks, I was like, oh yeah, David Lynch knew, like, you know, you have to have some variety to the tone.
Yeah, it's
Um,
definitely more varied. Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
audience can go up and down in emotionality and not just be stuck in this one kind of mindset the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as
I think
opposed to, but just real quick, I was going to say, like, but at least to your point, it does have a character. You do have to be talented to do that, you know, to have the music and the cinematography and the acting and the production value create all of this is not easy. And because, you know, again, going back to the island or going back to Manifest, right?
mm-hmm.
Like, no, none of that. Um, those shows don't have any of those types of qualities being getting any attention to
Yeah, I
it.
don't remember either of those shows achieving any sort of distinctive mood at
Mm-mm.
all. It was very flat,
Mm-hmm.
both of them, like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like, you know, I don't know. I have those bands where, you know, like all their songs kind of sound the same, but I like them. So I don't know. It's not a thing I'd want to listen to exclusively or only all the time, but like, if you want that thing, it does that thing. I don't know. That's sort
Sure.
of the level I'm on with Dark, I guess. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I get that it's like kind of one dimensional, but I like that dimension. So I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. The complaint makes sense, basically.
Yeah.
It
But
just it didn't bother me. Basically, I was on board for the brooding.
mm-hmm. What
Um,
do you have any more gates to discuss?
yeah, I was trying to think. I feel like there was another gate, but let me think what it could have been.
Was it a Stargate?
Maybe it was a Stargate. I'm trying to think. Yeah.
Obviously, we have to mention how the another obvious similarity with Lost is just like a cave where you can do time travel and
Yeah,
teleportation and stuff is very, very similar.
definitely. Yeah, yeah. And I was the other thing I was gonna say in terms of the characters is it's not the same because, like I said, they are limited, but they do get to show like multiple characters in different periods of their lives, like specific periods. But you know, we get
Mm-hmm.
like some of the adults as kids, and I do think you get something out of that character wise, like seeing
I don't
that.
know what, but you get something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It just makes them more fully realized because you get the sense that they actually live like a life and that you know like they
But
didn't
none
show
of
up
them
for that
have
one scene.
changed. That's what's. I completely get something out of it, but it almost is like none of them have changed since they were kids. Like it's the same exact behaviors in people,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you just get to contextualize it.
They are the way they are, but I mean I think Lost did stuff like that where it's like they were like they were, and like
They
that was part of
were
the
like they
point.
were.
And the change maybe I feel like in Lost like the change really happens. Not, there are exceptions to this, but a lot of times with the
Well,
flashbacks like the change happens through the island story. You
but
know,
that's the difference. Yeah, that's the difference is Lost when they would juxtapose flashbacks, it was a character like you know, using what's actually happening in the present to reflect on what happened in the past or vice versa. But like Dark isn't really doing that. It's just showing you what happened back then and what's happening now, but they're not really interacting with each other, you know.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
like a character in 2019 is like what should I do? Go left or right? And then they cut to a flashback to the 80s, and then they learn, you know, and then like some information comes to them in the 80s, and then they like make a decision. So they're getting a different. It's just a different vehicle, right? They're kind of getting different things out of it. Which is what annoys me a bit when they use the same sound of Lost, the flashback whoosh sound. But I'm like, but it doesn't feel as impactful here when you guys are just cutting to storylines. You're not like really like it doesn't feel as connected to me. And that was the other thing that annoyed me when they kept saying everyone was like, everything's the same as it was before. It's all happening. It's like, no, it's not. Nothing's the same as it was before. Everybody's older. People are doing different things. Like, it's not the same. They kept saying that over and over. It was like, it's all happening again. Everything's the same as it's like, no. What is the same as it was? Literally nothing is the same. What are you guys talking about that's the same as it was before?
Yeah, they wanted this idea of like a cycle, kind of like the thing. Like they alluded to that. I guess it was Helga who was like ranting about that too for a while in the early days, and they drew a couple of like vague parallels between like things in the past and the present. But yeah, I think
just like a Twix bar, vague parallels. Exactly. Does that work? Twix bar, vague parallels.
Sure, why not?
2 bars. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like that's a theme they want, but I don't know how far they're really taking it, and I also don't know if it has any real significance or if that's like just characters' interpretation. Like they see this as cyclical, or is there some cosmic sense in which it is cyclical, or Battlestar Galactica or something, like things happen again, but they look a little different each time. Like I don't know. I don't know how far they're really taking that. They did try to go back to it, and like you said, they had multiple characters like saying things along those lines. So I don't know. I feel like the show's trying to say there's something to that, but I haven't really seen it yet. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, maybe they'll make that work in the end. But yeah, I think the cyclical thing is a big question mark. It worked better early on. We had no idea what was going on. So it's felt like it was building the thing. But yeah, now it seems like, well, if there's stuff repeating, it must just be a coincidence because it has nothing to do with, there's no reason or force that's like making some similar things happen in the past as the present. Like
the only thing that's similar is a couple kids are kidnapped. That's like the only thing that's similar. I don't know, right? What else?
I think they mentioned a couple other things in one scene. Although now I don't remember what those are, so it's gonna be a bad point. But I think there was a scene where it was like,
there was. It was
like, oh, this thing and this thing happened, and look, and it happened then, and that's like besides the kids, I think they drew some.
Well, obviously, there's the I guess animals dying thing from the.
Oh yeah,
electromagnetism from the black hole.
Right, but that's not. I mean, that's just like that's how it affects the animals, and there's the same animals. So I don't know. Like it's not really a cycle so much as like.
But I mean, the idea that happened 33 years ago as well.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, what else is the same that would have been there?
Yeah. No, that's definitely. I can't. Example.
Yeah, I can't think of anything more important that they mentioned. But you're right, there was a scene about that.
Yeah, the bird stuff really reminded me of Walt and that whole thing from Lost. Like, this whole, like, birds dropping from the sky.
I also thought when they introduced the deaf girl that because they had all these plot points about when someone time travels through the cave, or opens the door, I don't know what the exact trigger is, but there's some electromagnetism or some kind of sonic force that affects animals and destroys their eardrums and kills them. And then I thought when they introduced the deaf character that she was going to come into play because she's deaf.
Right.
And I thought, here's what they'll use her for some reason.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen.
They could still do it.
Yeah, they could still do it. But I thought like it would have something to do with like the machine or something. Mm-hmm. Either the time travel or some, the bad guys would try to do something and it wouldn't work, because she's deaf. That's why
Right.
it's
Right.
it only affects you if you can hear or something, and if you can't
Right.
hear, something. But they didn't really do that yet. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's in play. It does seem like that shouldn't be a coincidence. I thought they were even going to say like she's deaf because of this, but then I couldn't get around the fact that, well, yeah, but most people aren't. So, but then like another thing I was thinking about is like I think she's actually like going to a school for the deaf, if I understand correctly. And I was just thinking about this small town having a whole school for the deaf,
no, I don't think so because no, I don't think it's a school for the deaf.
it's not.
Because when Peter shows up to pick her up, well, I don't know. I thought there were other kids talking. Sorry, not that scene, but when she gets dropped off and she tells the mom she has a boyfriend. I thought there were other kids talking, and then she goes over and signs with her boyfriend. But I thought there were other kids talking in that.
Okay, yeah, maybe so. Yeah, I have that impression for some reason. Anyway, based on my impression that might have been wrong, I started thinking that if they actually have a school for the deaf in this like relatively small, town, I thought, oh, maybe it's because of the stuff happening that's like causing this like hearing, like the eardrums bursting and the animals, like I was ready to like spin that into a whole theory, but I just couldn't get around the fact that most people aren't having this, so it didn't really make any sense why it would just be like a select few. Even if it's a larger number than average, it's still like, yeah, but like it's like these birds, they're just all dropping,
What was weird?
all
The
sheep
bird.
were dead.
I thought that the bird when the birds dropped from the sky in that first scene they showed, I thought it was really. I was like, this is great. You write this in the script and you go, oh man, this is such a great shot. This is gonna be a great scene. But then when you actually watch it, you're like, so at this exact moment, there was a flock of several dozen birds flying overhead because it's nighttime. Why are birds just circling overhead in the middle of the night? It was just really weird to think the practicality.
Are you supposed to be sleeping? What are you doing, birds?
What are you?
Get to your nest.
And if there's such a huge flock of birds flying overhead, why wouldn't we hear a huge,
right,
flock of birds? So anyway, I just was like, this isn't that practical that all of these birds are suddenly just flying.
It's too many birds. Yeah. You're right. I feel like they should tell us like the birds are attracted to it, but then it kills them.
Or like they could have showed like I guess there's like a big sound that comes out of the cave, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe the sound startled the birds, and then they started flying, and then they got hurt with the force.
Ah, see, there you go. They were roused from their nests by the sound. And then there's tons of birds flying around.
I fixed it for them. Okay.
See, it's plausible.
There it is. It's possible. Okay, well, I'm interested to see where it goes. I think it definitely reminds me of that spirit of like Donnie Darko, where you had this dark mystery fantasy that turns out to have a sci-fi answer. They also had a book, about time travel and I just think anytime your time travel story has somebody involved in writing a book about how time travel works, you're just in a very particular type of time travel story. And then there's a second type that you can also have where someone's already done the time traveling, so they've written down things that'll be important to know.
Right.
Or somebody goes in the past and brings the future and brings something back to the past, and now they have knowledge and it's interesting the little variations of the time travel story. But I'm curious to see if the show how much it evolves season to season. Because it seems like they could just totally change focus and do something else.
Yeah, definitely. It's very possible. It's not really clear. I feel like I expect them to at least somewhat continue what we're seeing because there's like these loose threads. But yeah, I do think the focus definitely could shift. I mean, definitely the end of the season suggests like a shift.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that the guy who wrote the book like doesn't actually know that much. Like, you expect him to be like the guru of time travel or something, but like it seemed to me like everything he knew was something that someone else told him who was time traveling.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
that's how he became the foremost expert. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
He interviewed all the actual experts, and then wrote the book before they became experts.
Yep.
And then that's how they became experts, is from what he wrote, from what they told him.
From what they told, yeah. It's like, what? Yeah. Like, I don't know. It's almost like Locke, like, oh, there's a prophecy because I time traveled and I said that I'm the leader. So it's like, there's your prophecy. Like, that's not really the prophecy. Like, maybe there's nothing there. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's just a funny character. I when they introduced him, I really thought he was going to be more like knowing and he was going to like have some plans and but like,
who are you talking about?
The watchmaker, H.G. Tannhaus.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you call him H.G. and he wrote a book about time,
yeah,
like H.G. Wells.
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe did I get I don't know. Maybe I got the initials wrong. I think
no,
it's
you didn't.
It's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a deliberate reference.
It's a reference. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So that's but it's like I don't know. He was just like lucky. I don't know. He just happened to have these encounters. It's just weird. Like I'm just imagining someone famous for like doing research, but it's just because like someone from the future told him research that had already been done, and they just wrote it down and like, put their name on it. I don't know. There's something very practical.
Isn't he even wrong about what he wrote in the book?
Oh, was he wrong about what he wrote? Which part?
I don't know. I thought like there was that scene where he's talking to the stranger and he's pontificating about all this stuff with time travel, but didn't the stranger tell him like, no, it doesn't work like that or something? And he's like, he tells him what's happening, but it's like, he's already written the book. So is he wrong? Like, I don't even know what's in the book. What does the book even say? Right? Yeah. I don't even understand. Like, everyone's getting the book, but like, what does the book even say about time travel?
Yeah, why do they even care about the book? I mean, I'm just kind of confused by that. Like, why does anybody like he does like eventually like build this machine, but it's like he had a shitload of help with that. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm confused by that. It made more sense before they told us things, like about that character.
It seemed like the whole point was he had a theory about time travel being real and like maybe its implications or something, but in like that, like, so if you had experienced something that could be related to time travel, here's a guy who would convince you that it's possible, right? Oh, here's this book about it. Oh, this explains how it's possible. So if I did like find my dog from 33 years after it went missing, that is here. Yeah, it is time travel because I got a book that says time travel is possible, but it's just not clear exactly like what's in it. So it's hard to know what, like you said, what the people are getting out of it when they read it and go, ooh, time travel book. Like,
yeah. It's like, maybe you should just talk to a time traveler. I think maybe they can tell you more. There's a lot of them around.
All right. Well, anything else to throw in here before we wrap it up?
I think that's good for now. If I forget something, I'll try to pick it up later. But yeah, that's all I can think of. I think we got to most of the stuff, at least touched on it. So yeah, it's good.
Cool. Yeah, I know there's a lot of little things we didn't talk about, but okay, cool. Well, I'm definitely down to watch season 2 and see what this whole new storyline is going to be.
Oh yeah. I'm so ready for season 2.
See what Jonah's plan is.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's the weird thing, right? It's like you see that character's future already, so it's like, I don't know. That's the strange thing. But I feel like there's only two ways you can go with that. Like either he can change his future or he can't. And if he can't, then we already know where he's headed.
Wait, which character?
Jonas.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if he can't change his future, then we kind of already know what it is. So all they can really do, it's like a flash forward basically. It's like all they can do is tell us how he got there.
Yeah.
You know? And they could do that. Or they could do a thing where, or they could do a sort of combined version, but like the other thing is where he tries to change his future. You know, he tries to, I mean, changing his future would also be changing the past to some extent. I think. Since like part of his future is in the past. So anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So just in terms of that character, at least, like I'm unclear. Ulrich is stuck in the 50s. Like that's going to have to be resolved somehow. I can't imagine he's going to stay there forever. So I think we'll get follow up on that. I think we got to find out more about Noah and.
Sorry, just to bring up Ulrich.
Yeah.
Do you think that Egon in the 80s, as the cop, sheriff, or whoever he was, disliked Ulrich because he remembered old Ulrich from the 50s?
Oh, man. Did he? Could he make a connection there? I mean, would he have any clue that they're related? Or is it just like subconsciously it reminded him of...
Yeah, I don't know, but it just seems like he's gonna know. I mean, Ulrich just told him his name in the 50s.
Yeah.
And
did he say his name in the 50s?
Pretty sure he did.
Ooh, very incriminating. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, he, yeah. And is he just going to forget about this guy who, is he going to say I'm from the future? And maybe he's going to lie, and I don't know. I guess we'll see what he actually ends up saying to him. But yeah, I was wondering that once he went to the 50s, like, oh, and meets Egon, I was like, oh, is this why Egon like hated him because he's like, I know, I remember you time traveled, and I don't know how you end up doing it, but you're up to no good, and it's just a matter of time before something happens.
Yeah, and then he's holding a grudge and stuff. Yeah. I mean, maybe. I didn't really think that through. Yeah, that's a tough thing about time travel. It's like everyone in the past who saw him is now, I don't know. I think it helps that he didn't live, long enough to see the adult version in the present where it would have been like irrefutable that it's the same person. Ulrich Nielsen, I don't know. It could be a common name, but it's still like a weird coincidence. Would he think, oh God, yeah, that's a weird one. I think he's actually Claudia's father, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Who obviously plays a big role in the time travel stuff later. So I'm just saying, just because they're related doesn't mean he knows stuff that she knows. But there's a door open there since she's like meddling about in various people's lives that she might, it's possible. But they didn't really say that, but he clearly had a grudge against him seemingly in both times. Wow. That's a good one.
Hey, there you go. One last good one for the podcast.
I like it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. And until next time.
All right. See you later, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.